equity consciousness. We got D West in the building.
In entering upon this course of instruction, each of you should, so far as possible, lay aside for the time being all previous theories and beliefs. By so doing, you will be saved the trouble of trying
All the way through the show.
to put, quote, new wine into old wineskins, end quote. Luke chapter 5, verse 37. If there's anything as we proceed which you don't understand or agree with, just let it lie passively in your mind until you have enjoyed the entire show. For many statements that would at first arouse antagonism and discussion will be cleared and easily accepted a little farther on. After the show is over, if you wish to return to your old beliefs and ways of living, you are at perfect liberty to do so. But for the time being, be willing to become as a little child, for said the Master in spiritual things, quote, except you become as little children. Ye shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven, end quote. Matthew chapter 18, verse 3. If at times there seems to be repetition, please remember, the Self Love Show is a lesson, not a lecture.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Are you on my frequency? Are you on my frequency?
Sure. Be the guys. Prison slavery. Okay. All right. Big ups to Karen. We are in the building. Self Love Show. Episode number, you tell me.
The Self Love Show, giving you more than vitamins and minerals. Food for your soul, information and plans integral to making your mind grow. With more growth and development, BS is irrelevant to the intelligent. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding is what we represent. It's the Self Love Show, the Self Love Show, the Self Love Show. We do it for our people. The Self Love Show, it's the Self Love Show, it's the Self Love Show. To expose they don't equal. The Self Love Show, the Self Love Show, the Self Love Show. Wordsmith 9 Mills, the Self Love Show, the Self Love Show. You know how the story goes. It's the Self Love Show.
That it is. Before we jump off, the views expressed in today's podcast are those of the hosts and guests and are not necessarily reflective of TATN or any affiliates. Also, this show is not to be perceived as any medical advice. We suggest if you're having any issues, consult your doctor. Consult your doctor. Welcome to the Self Love Show on This Ain't That Network. Thank you, Karen. Or TATN. Yeah? TATN. All right. This is a spot where we take very deep dives into the intersection of mind, body, spirit, and society. I'm one of the co-hosts, 9 Mills. First off, all praise to the ancestors, the Most High, and my late beloved Mama Sky. That's in no particular order. Welcome to the Self Love Show on This Ain't That Network, or TATN. Tonight, we're exploring the captivating confluence of radiology health, equity, and human consciousness, a space where cutting edge science meets the art of compassionate care. In today's episode, our conversation turns to how imaging technologies not only reveal the hidden structures of our bodies, but could also offer profound insights into the mind and spirit. Joining us is the brilliant Dr. Wes Beta. He's from the RAC by way of ATL, whose pioneering work in radiology may challenge traditional boundaries between physical measurements and a subjective experience of consciousness. We're going to illustrate how Dr. West's innovative approach demonstrates how every medical image might serve as a window into the complexity of our neural landscape, urging us to rethink how tech and empathy can unite to bolster health equity and foster inclusivity in healthcare. He's very big on that, so we'll definitely touch on that. As we embark upon this journey, we invite you to challenge your perceptions and consider how the precise details captured by radiology could resonate with the depth of our human experience. Together, we'll delve into the narratives that bridge science and the human condition, inspiring us all to envision a future where tech, diversity, and compassion work hand in hand for a more equitable world out there. Welcome to a conversation that aims to nurture the mind, honor the body, and potentially transform society. So, whip out your self-love vision and your 10 hats. This is the Self Love Show, and this is the revolution. The revolution will not be on YouTube, however. In fact, these are lessons, not lectures. We're live and in living color on Tuesday, March 25, 2025 at about 7:10 in Chicago. As always, you cats can be anywhere in this magnanimous, perfect universe. But thankfully, we all chose to be here together. Here. Together.
It's the Self Love Show. It's the Self Love Show. It's the Self Love Show. To expose they don't equal. The Self Love Show. The Self Love Show. The Self Love Show. We wordsmith 9 meals. The Self Love Show. The Self Love Show. You know how the story go. It's the Self Love Show.
What's going on there, good brother? What down, brother Wordsmith? What you manifesting today, sir?
Love, 9. You know me. I'm manifesting love. What you manifesting?
Saying good brother, pure, magnificent. Some say harsh, others have said tough, but I can assure you all it's self-love just the same.
No doubt, no doubt.
Hey, what's been going on in your neck of America since we last popped up?
Man, the Mother Nature has been on a roller coaster. It's going from 80s to 20s and snow, back to 70, down to 40.
And she knows what she's doing, or maybe there's some harp involved, or maybe she knows what she's doing. It could be divine order there, Phil. Well, it's always divine order.
That's a roller coaster, no doubt. Anyway.
Yeah, but that weather's gonna break, man, because the groundhog said so.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Y'all should be out of the woods. All right, y'all. So we got a great one to unpack today. What to expect. We always jump this show off with the Self Love Show quote of the day, and then we'll run a short video, less than 1 minute. It's the More Growth and Development. It's the platform upon which we stand upon. And then, of course, we're going to run a couple of videos. We're shifting a little. We're going to react to them. They're very, very short, right? And then we'll provide you with a riddle that we refer to as a dome teaser. It's already been pinned in the chat. Your mind is awful. If you let it lay fallow, It's the Satan's playpen. All right, you let that thing lay fallow. You know, you're messing around with the Satan, allegedly, in my opinion. And then today's topic: radiology, health, and equity, consciousness, with Dr. Derek West in the building. Please like, share, subscribe. You know, smash that like button. It's free. Repost it. Get it all over the place. And yeah, Brother Wordsmith has already taken a stab at the dome teaser. What am I? Close, but that's not exactly what we're looking for, Brother Wordsmith. If you could type that guess into the chat, that'll help other people matriculate, because that's what we do. We are one. All right. And then we close the show out with my personal favorite part of the whole shebang. And that's where Brother Wordsmith's going to go ahead and summarize today's topic off the rip, off the top of his dome. You know what I mean? And Americans like that. And when you talk like this, they like that, apparently. And it's always a work of magic. So y'all do check that out. I'm looking forward to it. Any announcements there, bro?
Well, you already know. Midwest Festivals presents Ancestor Echoes.
Echoes.
Man, y'all better jump on it. The early bird special. Y'all better get on it. I'm telling you. It's the deal. You're going to be sad you didn't.
Can you quantify the deal? Not necessarily in numbers, but maybe percentages or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's a deal.
All right. It's a deal. All right. You guys get the deal. You know what I'm saying? Get it now. It's a big deal. Speaking of exploring, consciousness, it's everybody should be there. And you got to be there to understand the experience, you know?
It's consciousness expansion, I tell you.
1,000,000%. I sure went to some other realms when me and the wife was out there.
No doubt.
Yeah, so I agree. And also Gym Recovery for your local Chicago towing needs. Check that brother out. And then also, we've got Bella B Designs. Bella B Designs. You can find that Bella B Designs 365 at gmail.com. Yeah, Bella B is providing wonderful shirts and stuff like that. Custom.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna break that out on Sunday. The one that was made for Mouthpiece Included.
That's what's up.
1,000,000%. All right, y'all. But outside of that, if there's any doctors, anyone, related to this topic, we'd love to hear from you. We love to hear from everyone. Let us know where you're from. What part of Chicago or what part of the world are you from? Let us know where you're checking in from. Type it in there. Don't be bashful out there. And enough of my yapping. I'm going to turn it over to this brother so he can handle his business.
Welcome to the Self Luv Show. Radiology, health, equality, consciousness with Dr. West. Unpacked. It's going down. Y'all know how we do. As always, we have a very important video that I need you to watch, the Silverback More Growth and Development platform, which we're building the Self Love Nation off of. But before that, we have the Self Love Show quote of the day.
I tell you what, Dr. West is a resilient son of a God.
Man, you're not kidding. Wait a minute.
Quote of the day.
Yeah.
It's
I
would. Oh, you got it. All right.
I will, therefore I am. Once again, I will, therefore I am. 9 meals.
Yeah.
Dope. Dopeness.
Free Karen.
more growth and development platform. Number 1, repair our nation via reparations. We demand our silver back. Number 2, to connect our breadwinners with our activists. And 3, show an accurate depiction of African American Chi-Town. 4, to shine a light on positive influence. 5, heal our community one person at a time. 6, to provide an unfiltered platform for our influencers. 7, recycle the black dollar. 8, to provide mentors for the mentorless. 9, to close the gap between us and our pink kinsmen.
Number 10, protect our women, children, and men by any and all means necessary.
That part. And big ups to the Fat Boy Food Critic, Shy City, is with the Fat Boy Food Critic typed in that chat out there, Shy City out there. Big ups. In case you guys didn't catch last week's show, we unpacked consciousness with hypnotist / MC Emerge McVeigh, aka the Brain Bully.
Amazing show.
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago, but yeah.
Yeah. Amazing show.
Big ups to the Brain Bully half blocker.
No doubt. You gotta check him out. Check him out. Check
Yeah.
that show out. There's so much information.
I expanded, that's for sure. All right, I got a warm-up poll question here. And you guys, I'll drop the poll link into the chat shortly. All you have to do is click on it, vote real quick. Won't cost you nothing, and it's totally anonymous. Could you be hypnotized is the simple poll question. Option number 1, no chance. Man, hey, Seth, the way the response is coming out is perfect. Option number 2, no doubt. Option number 3, already happened. Option number 4, I'm unsure because I'm straddling the fence with my bum. So those are your options. Brother Wordsmith and I will let you know exactly, and I'll drop that chat link in the chat when I get a chance, but we'll let you know what we unpack towards the end of today's show. You guys, please like, share, subscribe. We're covering radiology, health equity, consciousness with Dr. D. West in the building, ATL's finest by way of Chi-Town.
Huh? Oh, Atlanta.
Is that right? Yeah, Atlanta.
Yeah. You said ATL, it threw me off.
Oh, all right. Yeah, by way of Chi-Town. We want to throw that out there. And that's right. He was a lab scab. And I want to get that out there. You know what I mean? He knows about the hallowed grounds of William H. Ray School right over there on 57th and Kimbark. You know what I'm saying? He knows about it. Maybe we'll have some time to talk about it. I'm sure we won't. Right. Please like, share, subscribe. That's what we on. Brother Wordsmith, did you happen to see, because you were educated, your indoctrination, your high school indoctrination was at the Catholics. All right. This is from air quotes, trusted priest. All right. Fat Boy Food Credit said it already happened. He's been hypnotized before, or she. No, Fat Boy. Okay. Stace Dude said, "What up, fools? What up, Nope?"
We talk about the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. So that would be a confirmation of faith.
Of course, this is not confirmed yet. The church has to go through a thorough investigation, and for good reason.
Well, because anybody could claim a miracle anytime and use it to make money. And that's not real faith. That's just tomfoolery.
Distortion. In an effort to hide the clear prognostism.
There you go, fella. Give me your take on that. Priest talking about they can't trust the other priest.
Yeah, I don't know about trusting any of those guys. My little people. Not what they say. They be on something. But y'all know how it goes. Radiology, health, equity, consciousness with Dr. Derek West, unpacked on the Self Love Show. We're gonna get right into it.
All right, I
Pretty
just
soon, another video.
I just dropped that poll link into the chat, y'all. Yeah, bro. No, my thing on that is the Vatican, when there's a quote unquote miracle, the Vatican has to come out. Yo, what up, Noop? The Vatican has to come out and say, the Vatican has to come out and say, we've got to come out and make sure that our priests aren't liars because they'll do anything for money. And we're not going to talk about the bum magic. I find that extremely weird. It'd be like if a beta noob was saying anything happened, and then we've got to come out there from beta to make sure they're not just lying and making stuff up to make money, bro. Like I find that extremely weird. And then he's got the nerve to talk about faith. But you can't talk about it because you're programming.
Well, I mean, you're saying you have to have faith out there. That doesn't mean very much to me out there. You already know.
Hey, D West said, yo, bro, can you send D West the Zoom link? Hey, we're gonna send you the Zoom link, D West, or you could drop it. No, don't drop it in the chat.
No.
He's gonna text you the Zoom link. Maybe you could email it to yourself if you're doing it from a computer, or otherwise, if you're using your phone, just click on that link. We're gonna put you in the cream room for like 5 minutes or so, and then we're gonna pop this show off. Appreciate your patience, good brother. The Fat Boy Food Critic said KSATL in the house.
Yeah.
Listen, aren't you there, Dean?
Yeah.
Is there a statute of limitation on some of the stuff that was? Well, go ahead.
Well, that's why when you said ATL, that's what, because I knew who the Fat Boy Food Critic is out there.
Oh, you know who that is?
Yeah.
Well, enlighten me. Oh, maybe they don't want. All right. We'll talk about it off thing. Maybe they want to be incognito.
He's somebody that's close to, your wife. They did him.
Okay. Yeah. He's an actor.
Yeah. Did some work together.
All right. We got one more, y'all. We're gonna run for y'all. We got one more. We're gonna run for y'all. All right.
Oh damn! I was supposed to be sending the link
to D West. What we'll do it while it's playing. All right. Yeah. AI tut there, fella. Expand your minds.
Distortion. In an effort to hide the clear prognostism that is typical of Africans from the region, they tilt his skull and elongate his nose. You will notice, when overlaid with his mummy, they have completed repositioned his eyes and the length of his nose. Not to mention it looks nothing like his portraits. This would not have been necessary had they just used his actual portraits. All of the 400 busts of Tutankhamun are able to perfectly fit his mummy without any change or distortion to his features required. It leaves you to wonder what the motive could have been in creating this unrealistic deformity and claiming it was a reconstruction. When I created this reconstruction based purely on one of the hundreds of available busts, matching the features and skin tone, not only did it perfectly overlay with his portraits, but it also perfectly matched his skull and mummy without any distortion. Who would have thought you could get a consistent and accurate reconstruction by simply honoring his likeness?
3/18/25. All right. We got okay. You need me to send that link, fella, or you got it done already?
No, I didn't get it done yet.
Okay. Look, I'll just go to my email here, and
That's
then
what
I'm
looking at, and it's driving me nuts.
okay.
Oh,
all right.
Got too many email addresses.
Tutorial show links. I got you, bro.
I'll get to it.
Karen, we're gonna need you to start doing stuff. All right. All right, I just gave you the link, Dr. West. I gave you the link. All right, y'all. That was King Tut. So they had an image they put out initially, and he looked like this olive colored alien.
Yeah, they just lied. That's all.
Yeah, but then when that brother, put the computer to it and went off the images and actually the structure of his cranium and all of that, he looked like a perfect, beautiful young black male.
Well, you know,
copper cut.
You know what that means. They're gonna write themselves into every portion of history that they can. Period.
Dr. West, yeah, we sent you that link, good brother. We texted it on that thread with me, you, and brother Wordsmith. I feel you, bro. I feel you, and we got a lot to cover as far as that goes. Another time, because they're allegedly discovering stuff about the pyramids that we postulated long ago. Some of us, we don't need all of the data and the equipment. We can just go into the ether and it feeds you certain truths. But you got to be able to use discernment. All right, y'all. Radiology, health equity, consciousness with Dr. D. West. Please smash that like button, y'all. Drop a comment. Let's get this algorithm going. Repost it. Put it up on X. If you're still calling it Twitter, do that. You know what I mean? Post it on your Facebook pages where there's millions of y'all on there, and all you guys do is talk, everyday nonsense. You know what I mean? In my opinion. I'm just having fun. All right. Radiology, health equity, consciousness with Dr. West. We got a dome teaser before we're gonna start the show. The dome teaser is with beams that reveal what lies deep inside. I unite body and mind where secrets reside. Once again, with beams that reveal what lies deep inside. I unite body and mind where secrets reside. Brother Wordsmith made a guess. I'm going to type it in the chat. What was your guess? X-ray, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brother Wordsmith said X-ray. It's wrong, but I'll consider it warm, you guys. Whoever solves it, you got bragging rights until next week. And we'll give you the key at the end of the show. Enough of the appetizers out there, fella.
Let's quench the self-love nation's thirst.
All right, we're going to run a quick promo video, and then we're going to get this party started. $3-18-25. We got Cap Ship Death Row, a member coming in the building. We're exploring consciousness further with Dr. West. Mr. West. Mr. West.
Gonna be an expansive conversation.
He's traveled the world, saves lives. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about his profession, but more so his travels, his journey, and we'll see if we can whittle out of him the consciousness, because a lot of those professionals, they don't like to talk about it.
He's not like a lot of them. That's for sure. He's had some experiences that definitely had to expand his consciousness.
100%. Looking forward to that. Today, nothing lasts forever. On this day. That was one of Kanye's dopest songs. Y'all sleep on it though. You know, sleep on it. We got D West in the building. I do want to give a quick breakdown. This show was born from the consciousness of Brother Wordsmith. He's been pushing it for a minute, and then during after watching George Floyd become an ancestor and get kneed out for 9 minutes, we decided we'll go ahead and put our voices out here, maybe add some balance to the way that typically we've been portrayed, per se. We don't hate anyone. We actually believe in the spirit of unity. We love everyone, but we're copper colored first. Reason being, we're the ones that need the most help. More growth and development. The video that we ran speaks for itself. It's MOOR, growth and development. And we're here to chronicle our story as opposed to his story. So we're leaving messaging and data for our progeny, those who come behind us, maybe 200 years. How magnanimous would that be? Maybe it'll be us who returned. I don't know. But how magnanimous would that be for someone to be able to see us unpack what we're living through, society, and hear it from our own words without the filter of big media or whoever else may have different motivations outside of self-love. All right. That's what the show is all about. All right, self-love, do your thing. We're doing radiology, health equity, consciousness. Let's welcome this brother.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome. Nope. We greatly appreciate you coming through to do this, and looking forward to this conversation because it's going to be expansive.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate you brothers inviting me to be here. And I learned so much from you just within the last 5 to 10 minutes, man. I don't know how much more I can bring, but I'm going to bring it to you the best way I can.
Hey, D West, yo, Noop, I want to second with this brother just moved out there, bro. One thing, anything you set your mind to, you've always gotten done, bro. And you're a resilient SOB. I remember, like, he wasn't like D West is tall, but he's not your atypical, hooper out there. We needed him to slide in, didn't we, Self? We told him what we needed from him, and he gave it to us with 100% effort. And we came out there and we got that W. So, it's the type of cat this brother is. And we'll get into his other brilliance, but we don't just weigh brilliance on academia. This is probably one of the most resilient men you'll ever meet in your life, and in so many different ways.
Max.
Honored by that. Thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate that, brother. Resilience is something that's learned. It wasn't something that came naturally to me. As a kid growing up, in the 80s, if you tall and you black and you're in Chicago, you was a hooper. So you can imagine it was a little off that, I just never really connected with hooping the way that I would have liked to have. You can see the hoopers got all the ladies. The hoopers got all the fame. The hoopers, I wanted to be one, man. But, that's a part of growing up, I think, is to know that you are the master of your fate. You are the person who gets to choose what's important and what's not. Words only have the power that you give them. So, just because somebody says you should be tall, black, male, 80s, Michael Jordan era playing basketball doesn't mean you actually have to do it. And if I have to point to something that I've had to learn over and over, I would argue that that's probably one of the biggest ones. Even, frankly, how I got into medicine. It's really not that different from that. I didn't choose medicine. Medicine kind of chose me to some degree. But again, life is what you make it. And the power that you give is the power that you get. So to begin with, that'd probably be a good place for me to sort of talk a little bit about, where I come from. Having a father that's a physician. And my parents divorced when I was in 4th grade. And at the time, I didn't know that it was unique necessarily, that my mother, through her goodwill, said, you know what, you're better off with your dad than you are with me. Kind of like the Boys in the Hood sort of scenario. Except for me, I was like, my mom is not only she leaving, she's going to another town. But I had all my buddies that were there, who were always coming over my house to hang out. And I never really understood it much till I got much older and realized that I had something unique, which was that I was living one-on-one with my dad. And that experience alone was a major drive in who I am and how I got to be where I am. And to the extent that it has a double edge to it, which is that I wanted to be, just like him. So when I was an okay student. I was never a great student. I was an engineer undergrad, trying to figure out what engineers were. It's just like all of us. It's kind of one of the way the system works, I suppose. You sort of go in and try to figure out what the heck you're going to do when you're in your 18 to 24-year-old range, when you really have no idea. Although there are some who, I think we know a couple who are here and there who really knew from birth what they wanted to do. But most of us have no idea. So I ain't know engineering. But nonetheless, with engineering, I said, this isn't for me. I don't know what to do with it. And so my pops got in my ass, got in me about that. So I don't know if I can curse you. I have to watch my language. I apologize.
Hey, it's your show. Do you, bro?
All right, well, cool then. My dad got in my ass about, going that 5th year. He didn't like that at all. And that was a hard year, hard summer, because my dad said, you got to come home and you got to get a job at work and do all of this stuff. And I had just taken the MCAT just on a whim. I had really not studied much for it, but this is an example where the universe stepped right in and did something, because my dad was really honestly worried about whether or not I was going to make it and how to balance all of that. I was doing a little too much playing around and not enough about getting serious in life. And one of the few times where my dad smiled that entire summer was when the MCAT scores came, because I didn't know what they actually meant. The mail came in, and I get the mail, I open it and I look at it, and I go in the kitchen where my dad is on the telephone and he's talking to somebody. He gives me the shoulder look up, like I'm thinking, all right, he's still mad at me. I'm gonna go out. I put the scores down. I didn't know what they were. And I walked around and started to walk out, and my dad grabbed the scores and looked at them. And in one of the few moments that this happened, he said two things that really caught me. The first one was he told whoever it was, hold on, I got to talk to my son. And I thought, oh, I'm about to catch hell here. I don't know, whatever it is he's got there, he's about to tell me how bad, I'm thinking I'm in hot water. And he said, congratulations, son. I love you. And that I can count on maybe 2 or 3 fingers the only times that he ever said I love you. And not because he didn't love me, but because that generation, I think, had a little bit of a different view of how to say I love you. It wasn't a verbal thing that was said, it was more said by action. But when he said that, I was like, what the hell do I have here? So I snatched the thing back and I'm looking at the scores. I still hadn't figured out what the hell that made. Well, to make a long story short, for some odd reason, a guy who had not been a heavy student in biology, math, or any of these things somehow managed to ace that test. I don't know to this day how it happened, but to the extent that sometimes I wondered, did they get the scores mixed up? But whatever, all of a sudden it went from you don't have anything to do to you're going to college, you're going to medical school. And so this is where that sort of double edge comes in. It wasn't something that I necessarily had ever picked up, but I took it when it came. So, you take the wave as it moves. So if things shift, you pivot. And so I pivoted. And that is the beginnings of how
that's a fascinating story, because I never heard that. But let's back up just a little bit.
Sure.
You talked about synchronicity in the universe, where you mentioned the universe.
Mm-hmm.
What propelled you to say, hey, I'm going to take the MCAT? Was it something your dad was telling you to do? What propelled you to even take it? Like, I never dreamed, man, you know what I mean?
So I'm like, I'm
going to take the MCAT. Yeah.
The noops. And I don't mean it I mean this in a genuine fashion as I can say it. There were others who were studying for the MCAT. My shift Joe was studying for the MCAT, or at the time, I don't think he was studying for the MCAT yet, but he was talking about,
this guy said he didn't study for it.
Was really into being a physician. That was his thing.
Right. And he's a damn good one. Ophthalmologist.
Right. That's what
Big
I'm
up
saying.
Dr. Coney. Yeah.
And so he and a few others were talking about it, and they knew my dad was a physician, and they were like, "You're already halfway in. Why don't you just do it?" And you know, they also knew, many of them already knew Derek's in trouble with his pops. So Derek, you got to find a way out of this. You don't want to do you don't want to do engineering. Fine, look at other things. Try to open your mind up a little bit and try to find other things. And so again, without understanding what was happening, that the wave was moving, that the frequency had shifted, I just went and took it. And what I hadn't understood at that moment is that the frequency had shifted and that something was happening at that moment that was much bigger than what in this mind, body, and soul I could understand. And even to this moment, I don't completely understand it, but I don't have to experience it.
Man, bro, it's a lot you said there that I can't even try to unpack. That's all love. I just felt it took me back to high school self, and I stumbled into the ACT, and I got my scores back. I'm like, these must be
Right.
somebody else's results.
Right. But you gotta love yourself and believe that it was supposed to be there. The universe had it there for you. It was supposed to be there. So there's no mistake in any of this. So got there because we got there.
Man, all right. Drew Wade said, "Yo." And he said courtship of Eddie's father in reference to I used to watch that show, boy. I used to wish I was like, man, I wish that was my dad. You know what I mean? Dad, you know what I mean? Dad, I didn't have none of that. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
All right. I'm gonna ask you a question, bro. Let's see. Which of the following would you prioritize to heal the copper community's culture? And choose between one of these, and then if you want to add something else later, fine. But we ask everyone this question: spirituality, mindfulness, formal education, or health, or financial capitalization?
I would tell you beyond any reasonable doubt, 500% certain in my soul, that it has to be mindfulness with a close second on spirituality. Um, our minds are not what we think they are. We think our minds are complete consciousnesses that can connect us in ways that we think we understand, but we really don't. Our bodies are just physical things. There's an energy that flows between all of us that makes us all one, even though we are separate individuals in a physical sense. And the only time I've ever felt like I actually got a little bit of that, and maybe not to the full level of understanding, but to a level where I started to feel a connection to everyone and everything around, was when I was really looking at mindfulness and being in the moment and what that really actually represents. It's a method to help yourself uh, to certainly relax. And at some point, I'll get into why that becomes important in my life experience, and how I found out about mindfulness. But in terms of rediscovering what it means to be alive, I don't think there's any other way to do that with any of the other things that we talked about, with the possible exceptional part of spirituality. And even spirituality, depending on who you ask, can be different by the name itself, not necessarily by its meaning. So I would argue that it is definitely mindfulness. Um, to give you a full story on that, because this is where shirt comes off, I'm open. And I'm tell you, no, really, you're gonna know who I am. By the time we're done with this, y'all gonna know who D West really
Hey,
is.
let's talk about it. And remember, your progeny is going to see this 300 years from now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So here's the truth. In 2019, I think some of you knew about that. A good number of you knew about this, but in 2019, something happened, and I'm going to tell you the story behind it, and then how it relates to mindfulness, and how it relates to existence, and what it means to know what you know and what you don't, and why some of that matters and some of it doesn't. And here's what the background to all of this is. In 2019, I was at the in Tucson, Arizona, The American Board of Radiology gives tests to people who are trying to become board certified in radiology. And it's an oral examination. So all of the testers, and I'm one of the testers, we're in rooms and people are coming in and we have a computer up and we ask them questions and we're just really, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Tell me about this. This and press the button to the next question. Down, down, down. And we're scoring them as we go. And so they go from tester to tester to tester. And they don't know it that moment, but usually by the end of the day, after they've done a test, all the testers get together, we pull up their scores and we say whether they passed or not. And it's a lot. It's a lot for a number of reasons. The first thing is there's nothing harder than having to send somebody a letter home saying that they did not pass. Because if you're not board certified, it changes what you're able to do in medicine until you do pass. And so it changes both your view of yourself and the view of everything else. So I'm not a big fan of that. I had to fail a few people. So I've been there for about 3 days. Last day of testing. So next day we're going to go home in the morning. And at that moment, I was really ready to just get the hell away from everybody that I had worked with. Not because they were bad people, having to fail people, not because of anything like that. I just needed to get away from the moment and put a bookmark on the moment because this is where it starts to really change. I decided I was going to go for a jog. And there's a place in Tucson, Arizona, National Park, Segura National Park. And I decided I'm just going to go for a jog in the national park. So I call an Uber. It's 10 minutes away. Get the Uber. I get over there and look around and forgot my dang bottle of water. So, all right, fine. So I go to the welcome area. I walk in and I find the ranger. And I said to the ranger, I said, y'all sell water here? I just want to get my water.
Is it a Blackstone Ranger? I mean,
if it was, I probably wouldn't have got no water. I'd have got something else, but I wouldn't have got no water. But what he did do is he got dead serious with me. He was like, "Are you about to go for a jog?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, famous last words. He says, "Don't do it." And then he walks away. No water, no nothing. And I didn't understand what the hell that was all about. My read on it was, this is a young guy. He's like, he has to be in his early mid-20s. And he don't like that this old man is here going to go for a jog. I'm going for this jog. I ain't worried about y'all. So I go for the jog, right?
Wait. He said, don't do it.
He said,
okay,
don't do it.
All
Literally
right,
says that. Those word for word. And then he turns and walks off.
Wow.
Like he's not trying to have anything more to do about this. And I didn't understand what that was about. Now, I'll give you the backstory on why he actually said that. If you go to Segura's National Park website, under the name, it says right after Segura National Park, do not jog here. And the reason why they say that is because what eventually happened to me, apparently happens to a lot of people from the north, which is that you don't feel the heat, dry heat. You go for a jog, you don't have water, you don't feel bad. And I didn't. It was 4 PM. It was like mid-80s. It felt pretty doggone good. So I decided I'm going for the jog, and they have 2 loops that you can jog. You can jog a 3-mile loop or an 8-mile loop. So I'm jogging, and I'm getting in about mile number 3, and I'm literally on the other side of the park. And I was like, oh man, I done got on this 8-mile loop instead of the 3. No water. So again, trying to tough it out, I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I'm gonna make the rest of this. I'm gonna get over here. So I go over and I jog until it's nighttime. I get back, the park is closed, nobody's there. I'm at the Welcome Center. So I get to the Welcome Center, I call the Uber, and I felt lightheaded. And I stood up when the Uber comes, and I went straight down, face plant directly onto the ground. Now, at the time, I didn't know what had happened, which is that I had just had a traumatic brain injury. But fortunately, the Uber driver was adamant that he was not going to drive it. He was like, I'm calling the ambulance. I'm calling an ambulance. Stay down. Do not try to get up, because I'm still dizzy, literally trying to stand up and can't do it. So,
was the brain injury from the dehydration or from the fall?
Both.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with your story.
The medical part of this is that the dehydration caused my blood vessels to be constricted and had less flow than they should have had, such that when I fell, there's something called a contra coup injury. So boom, you hit your head, your brain is shaking inside of your skull. And so
And it wasn't moist enough.
Mhm.
And your
So
brain wasn't moist enough to take
it was
that
not
fall.
moist enough. It could not handle it. There was not enough fluid there to handle it. That's exactly right. Such that by the time the ambulance came, I was completely incoherent. I was completely didn't know who I was, and I was that way for 3 weeks straight. In the interim of that, not only had I not told anybody about me going on this jog, I barely took my phone. So in the emergency room, I only found this out after the fact that the way that they got me to people, they got my phone and they cracked it, and they said they knew my name was Derek West. So they literally went to every name that had the last name West and started calling one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. So they called my entire family, who eventually called my wife, who eventually flew to Arizona to help me to get moved back, to help me to get healthy again and actually get airlifted to Atlanta. Now, this is a long story, and I bring this up because this is the part that I really want to talk about, the mindfulness and what the real meaning of things is. The problem was not actually the fall. After therapy and a lot of mindfulness, what I figured out the real problem was why was I so hell bent on trying to go for a jog and make sure that nobody else was going to go with me? And the answer was I was completely burnt out. I hated what I was doing. I was not happy. The people weren't by themselves the problem. They were good people. They weren't the issue. The issue was here. The issue was the path that I had gone on had veered, and I'm fighting it. The path was it may be time to change how you're doing medicine, but I wasn't following it. And so this is what I mean when I say the universe will give you the answer if you don't listen to it. So the fastest way to get that answer is to find a way to stop me from working. And that was to some degree what it was. But that was the most important part to that, which involves mindfulness and consciousness, and not in the direct manner that you would have thought. It took me years to figure that out.
Let me jump in here. And bro, yes, we heard about it.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, and you got a whole lot of prayers on this end, for me.
Yeah.
Appreciate
love all y'all for that, for real. That's been a hard one.
One thing that's strange, and Brother Wordsmith, I was like, yeah, we got D West. And I'm like, man, I don't know if we can, explore this consciousness with him. And Brother Wordsmith was like, oh yeah, no, he's a different type of doctor based on his life experiences. Bro, you nailed it.
Yeah. It did. It absolutely changed my perception of what joy and happiness are. Happiness is something that can come and go. Joy is forever. And, you really have to look at things like, the list of things that you put out that you were like, what are the things that are going to help us? Money is probably one of the worst things to be worried about. And I'm not saying it like we don't need to worry about it in terms of how the system is set up, but understand it's a system. Money is only as valuable as you make it. I think there was a really good discussion of that, or a parable that was put on that from Game of Thrones, where the question is, there are three people. There is a person who is a swordsman, there is a king, and there is a wealthy man. There are three people. And the question is, which one has the most power? And so he's asking this of someone, and the person is saying, oh, well, the king has all the power. Well, the king only has as much power as the people who have the swords do. So, okay, the people with the swords have the power. Yeah, well, the people who have the swords may have swords, but they may not have a lot of swords, and they may have a whole lot of people against them. So the point to it was power is where you say it resides. So our money only has power because we say it. Our words only have power because we say they have power. And I'm not saying that we can't give them power, but understand that it is a choice. It's not an automatic. And maybe we'll get a little bit more into mental spiritual side of things to get a little deeper into that, because I think there's a deeper level to that than even that talks about.
Well, no, absolutely. No, there's a question we got for the end. It's like literally one of the last questions, and we'll save it. What message do you have for humanity? So there's a couple things you said. So I've asked like over 500 people this question, and my message is meditate daily. And save yours for the end, but no one that I've asked this question to has mentioned anything about money. Right?
Very important.
From the richest to the poorest, no one says their message to humanity would have anything to do with money so far. And I'll ask the chat, you guys, what's your message to humanity? And let me know if yours is your first message you'd leave is about money. Wow. Okay. All right. We're gonna table that a little bit because we're gonna get more into the consciousness in a minute. We're still in the more growth and development part of it. And we got to get you through this so we can invite you to the give back gang. All right. Yeah. All right. Unpack reparations in your mind's eye. And we don't debate on this show. I forgot to tell you that. This is your show, bro.
Reparations. At some point, the history of mankind is filled with people like us, people of color, who have issues that were not our own design and have left us in positions of decreased power, and our lives are less eloquent. The way we live is much more difficult. And in that small regard, I do think that there is something to be said about reparations. What I think is a bigger note is to say we are not the first groups of people to ever have had this and ask for some form of reparation. Now, what is the reparation that we're asking for, I think is a better question. I think we have to be careful about being too physical about it. That the reparation that we're asking for can't be the ownership of the country and money and that sort of thing. And those things are all important, but I do think that there has to be something bigger that has to come out of it, which is our collective experience has to become ingrained and built into the fabric of our society. I think that the things that we have, the things that we experience, the things that we have developed and grown from, those things are a part of where the reparation really comes in. Own that we are a part of this. And so I think that part of it, that loop that we're speaking of, I can give you about 8 or 9 different times in history where that specific issue has come up, where someone who has been pressed, who has been enslaved, I mean, think about what we talk about in the Bible, right? You know, we talk about all the things that happened to the Israelites. It wasn't just the Israelites that had it happen. It goes on and on. It goes back and back. The Bible has only got thousands of years in it, but this planet has been here for millions. And the fact of the matter is that there's been constant cycles of that going on. And so whether or not we want to own it, it doesn't matter because it's there. So in other words, we have a very similar path that the Israelites had in the Bible. The same process, there's nothing that's new there. And so that reparation, when you ask about what reparation is and where it should fit in, it is in the ultimate history of how we are currently in this country and in this planet. The same way the Israelites have a full-on story now that has been painted into our existence should be the same way. And that's what I want in my reparations. I want my history to be understood and to be valued as something that is so deep and significant that it needs to be treasured and remembered for eternity.
Love it. 1,000,000%. All right. So you're a senator, right? And the vote comes to you for reparations, and they're going to write a check for, say, $500,000 for every, descendant of so-called slavery, which we were prisoners of war. We were never slaves.
Right.
What would your vote be? Yay, nay, or would you abstain like I did at the beta chapter meetings 95% of the time?
You know, I would love to sign off on that and say, okay, take that money and go with it. But I know the real danger in that. So the answer is I would probably have to abstain.
That's
And
fair.
because the same problem that we've talked about will continue, which is that you're giving me money and the value of that money can change overnight.
Oh
Money
yeah.
is just a game. It's a game of cards. It's like the value of your house is a game of cards. Your house
Oh
is
yeah.
only valuable because I say it is.
It's a
You
shell
know,
game.
it's a shell game. It's a
Yeah.
shell game. So you tell me you gave me $1 million, well, all of a sudden $1 million is not going to be worth $1 million. It's only going to be worth $1. It's only going to get you what you think. It's not going to get you what you think. So it has to be something.
I would invest it all in Grape Crush and Newport.
Never. Hey, roll with it. The problem is it goes away. And then what do? Then the people who you ask for reparations are they done with you. And their view is you asked for it, you got it, we're done. The rest of this is on you. Tough luck. And I'm not saying like people are bad people, but people do think in those contexts that if once I've done what you've asked, then you can't ask for more. At least
Right.
that's the process that they'll throw at it. Now, I'm not saying we
Right.
couldn't ask for more. I'm just
Right.
saying it's going to be a hell of a lot harder if you've already signed off on reparations for cash money. That
500,
can't be
500
reparation,
stacks.
right? It
All
has
right.
to be something much more fabric into the structure of the country in a way that is not linked to the dollar. But again, therein lies the problem, which is
The
capitalism.
redlining and
Yeah, this is
yeah,
all a part of capitalism at its worst. And
million
so we
percent.
buy into it if we say, give me $1 million, you know. What was it on the Dave Chappelle show when every black person won $1 million?
Yeah.
You know,
The
there's
stock
going
went
to be a
up
whole
on
bunch of new
yeah.
record labels coming out. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But that
Jordan brand stock skyrocketed.
that's
You know?
right. That's right. I'm rich.
Yeah. It'd probably be a Harold's chicken on every block. All right.
Every corner.
Yeah.
Every corner.
What's radiology? What is radiology and why is it important? How is it important?
Sure. So radiology is basically imaging. They use the word radiology because it's the first sets of images that allows you to see inside of the human body were radiation induced images. Or in other words, there was an x-ray beam that was sent through that you could create an image of the inside of the body and actually see the bones. You could see where the heart sits. It's the first time without cutting somebody open that you could actually see it. So while we say radiology, what we're really talking about is imaging, because imaging as a whole involves more than just x-ray beams. You can make images with MRI machines, magnetic resonance imaging machines. That's not x-ray actually. There are other types of images. There are other types of devices that can make imaging. Ultrasound uses sound waves to make images. So there are a lot of ways that you can make images, but the point to the radiology, which is really, again, imaging, is that you have an ability to see things with eyes that no one else has. And so it allows you to, for example, help to plan a surgery for a patient. If you're a surgeon, by looking at the CT scan before you cut the patient and know where you're going to be cutting. It allows you to do things like determine if there is a tumor in a person, what's the risk that that tumor has? Has it spread to other places? What's the size of the tumor? What's the vascularity of the tumor? All of these things determine just how aggressive the tumor can be. Where is its location? A small tumor can be just as deadly as a big one, depending on where it's located. So these things are all seen by imaging. Now, there are subsections of what a radiologist does. So for those who don't know, in medicine, there are a lot of subsections and things that you can go into, whether it's surgery, ophthalmology, like Joe is, Don is a surgeon, Tim Simon is a surgeon. There are others who are general practitioners, the OBGYN. They're all a bunch of different ones. So radiology is one of many types. And within those types, there are subtypes. And the reason I bring up the subtypes is to understand that radiology isn't just solely imaging in general, it can be imaging very specific. So once you're done with a residency and you are considered a radiologist, you can do a fellowship on things like neuroradiology. Neuroradiology is very specifically the brain. Well, very specifically the brain and the spine and nervous system. So that's certainly one part that you can go into. There are mammographers whose specialty is incredibly important, particularly to women of color and women as a whole. So let me go back a step and make it clear. This is for women as a whole, but particularly because there is a real disparity that's going on right now with breast imaging and breast outcomes and breast cancer outcomes for women of color. Much, much higher rate of tumors being discovered at a very late stage, and such a late stage that they're not curable. And the problem with it is that it's avoidable if you are allowing people to make sure they get mammograms at reasonable times. It doesn't make it perfect, but it makes it better. But it is odd, unfortunately, that there are a lot of women of color who don't have access to mammographers. It isn't just the women themselves. The women are going, but there aren't actually enough mammographers, aka radiologists, who are willing to look at their imaging, who are there, who are board certified, trained, and subspecialty trained, who can really look at the image and say, okay, wait a minute, there's something going on here, because these things are very subtle. Some of it is very hard to see. If you look at breast imaging, we do it in two forms, in two angles, and we're looking to see if we see a really, really small tumor, because it's the small ones that become big ones very, very, very quickly. And so, again, those are some of the subspecialties that we have in radiology. My subspecialty was in interventional radiology. Go ahead.
Quick question before you go into
Absolutely.
your subsection.
Yeah.
So the issue is not a lack of equipment. The issue is more a lack of people who can interpret the data properly or well.
No, I minimized it. I just talked about radiologists specifically because we were talking about radiology, but the truth is it's a whole gamut of them. It's a whole
Okay.
gamut.
Okay.
So if you go to communities of color so for example, a perfect example is in Chicago at Cook County Hospital at Stroger. They discovered just how bad it was for Black women to be able to get their mammograms and get them read. It was atrocious. I give them credit for finding out about it and trying to fix it. Without getting into too much detail, they found that the majority of women either A, were not getting mammograms at all because they weren't being advised to get mammograms by their primary care physicians, or B, they were scared to go get them themselves. Why? Because there was a long wait list to get in, and you don't actually know what you're walking into. Do you trust, this goes into a little bit of how much do we trust the physician that we're looking at if they don't look like us? Now, I will be the first to tell you, I don't have to have a broken wrist to understand what it takes to fix one. But I will say I understand the logic behind somebody saying, you've never had a broken wrist before, so you don't know how the hell this feels. Correct? I don't. So that's why that's the same thought process that I'm sure a lot of women, especially women of color, who already are very distrustful of the system, to walk in and give their bodies up, because that is exactly what they're doing, in order to pick up on something that nobody's really explained clearly just how important it is, nor have they been given enough absolute board certified
access
imagers who are looking at it.
Right.
So this whole package comes together. And so if you go to the NIH websites and you start to look at the health disparities, that's up there in the biggest health disparities that we have in the country is that of mammography and breast cancer in Black women.
Man, you're not gonna keep talking about my mammography. my mama.
My mom,
But you were going into your specific specialty.
Oh, yeah. So imaging, it can also be used to do procedures. So I don't just look at images, and it's incredibly important to be able to look at them, but I can also use them during a procedure to make a puncture into an artery or vein and place a wire in and go in and place stents in to open up blood vessels. I can go in and treat cancers. I can go in and treat fibroid disease, which a lot of African American women have, which is abnormal, benign, but abnormal growths that occur in the uterus that can cause a lot of pain and bleeding. And again, when we talk about healthcare disparities, this is a perfect example of where one comes in and somebody came up with something, although it's not getting enough play that I think it deserves, which is that for a very long period of time, if a black woman came in and said that she's having heavy pain, and they did imaging and found that they had uterine fibroids, do you know what they were doing? They were getting hysterectomies. They were getting their uteruses removed.
They're
And
still doing. They're still doing it.
they're still doing it. They're still doing it. But it's a little bit different circumstance now because there's actually a treatment that's available that's done by interventional radiologists that can go in and actually decrease the amount of blood supply to the fibroids, which allows the uterus to slowly shrink back to its normal size. And
Wow.
you can actually still have children. You don't have to have surgery anymore. And the symptoms that we're dealing with, heavy bleeding, periunia, which pain during sexual intercourse, things of that nature, those are significantly reduced by performing this procedure.
How long has that procedure been available to those who've been using it? How long have we been using it?
The procedure was first discovered in 1978 in
Oh my God! You got
yeah, this was in Paris, France, actually, as a Frenchman that figured out that you could do this. It was, because part of what I think makes medicine very interesting is when there are real trailblazers that come up with a very unique way of doing something. X-rays is a perfect example of them. The person who came up with using an X-ray to look at imaging, he had his wife put her hand in. You could see her hand. Now, what he didn't know at the time was the radiation dose that he was giving was enough that caused her to have cancer, and she died.
Right. Right.
The point being that the fact that he even thought that that was something you could do is pretty amazing. And so that's the same thing with uterine fibroid disease. The person was looking at ways to stop bleeding during pregnant deliveries. And he found that, if that works during heavy bleeding during delivery, it could also be used for fibroid diseases. So he tried it and found that it worked. And so in the late 80s, early 90s is when it started to come, and by the late 90s in the United States, that's where it really began. That's really what sort of took off, to be honest with you.
And then well, I'm gonna clear the chat, but is that your specialty? I want to get into that because I cut you off. I want to make sure you got that out there. No, it's good. Drew said, like the Vulcan Science Academy, entrepreneur success training said, yo, ship. You know who that is, Brother Wordsmith? Entrepreneur success training. Who?
Pretty sure that's Ace.
Oh, okay. All right. The Paranimal in the building. Drew said, watching you now on the big screen and on my phone. Echo, entrepreneur success training, said he is from there and he knew better. All right. I should have done these earlier because I don't know the reference. Entrepreneur success. Oh, I guess he's saying you're from Arizona and you should have known better. Hey, we need some clarification, brother. Entrepreneur success training. He says KSDR. I don't know what that stands for. Kappa Ship Doctor. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Works. It works.
Yeah, it works. It works, don't it? For some of y'all. For some of y'all. All
Yeah,
right.
right.
B. Creamer Jr. That's Bernard. He said, what up, Derek? Good to see you, bro.
That's my guy. Hey, good to hear from all of y'all. That's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Furious.
Everybody out here is doing wonderful stuff, and it's great to see that, honestly. You never realize that when you're in college because, most of the time they just getting through classes, get your Drake on, trying to holler at the ladies, that sort of thing. But, when you see the growth and change that each of us makes, it really looks at, where our journeys have gone. And though we're walking separate journeys to some degree, look at the connection that's still there. We are talking, I'm 53 years old. We are talking 35 years ago that we're talking about when we all
Yeah,
were.
I was a prodigy. So I was only 10 when I was on the yard if he's 53.
There
All
you
right, go
go.
ahead. Yeah, I was a
Ain't nothing wrong
prodigy.
with it. But yeah, it's great to hear from these guys. It's awesome. This is awesome stuff.
All right. Look, we're gonna I got hold on. Let me get on here because we got Drew said this is real. He dropped a link, USA giving healthcare dot Siemens, and Asa has confirmed it's him. And he told brother Wordsmith, his grandfather, to watch it. Yeah. All right. I think he was talking to me. All right. I want to ask you yeah, because I said something about him being a paranimal, and I don't know why I got to watch it. I mean, he's a self-proclaimed paranimal. I mean,
Well, I
what
mean, I don't
Works,
know what
right?
else you said, but
yeah, what could I do wrong? He said he's a paranimal. He's a paranimal. All right, Noob. I want to just go through something, and then Brother Worson's got like 2 questions. Then we're going to take a quick break. You know what I mean? So we can stretch our legs right quick.
Of course.
There's a study by Dr. Avi Loeb. In his innovative study, Dr. Avi Loeb explores the potential of using focused ultrasound as a non-invasive treatment modality for both PTSD and addiction. The research aims to understand how targeted ultrasound waves can influence specific neural circuits that contribute to the symptoms of trauma and compulsive behaviors. By employing advanced imaging techniques, the study maps the brain's response before, during, and after ultrasound application, seeking to elucidate the underlying mechanisms that could alleviate stress and reduce addictive tendencies. The methodology centers on using low intensity targeted ultrasound to stimulate brain regions known to be involved in emotion regulation and reward processing. Early findings suggest that such stimulation may lead to measurable changes in neural connectivity, particularly in areas responsible for fear response and impulse control. These alterations in brain activity are observed via real time imaging, aligning with reductions in PTSD symptoms and addictive behaviors, thereby supporting the hypothesis that ultrasound neuromodulation could recalibrate dysregulated neural networks. Dr. Loeb's work stands as the crossroads of radiological. This is ChatGTP talking. Radiological innovation and mental health care, proposing a promising bridge between diagnostic imaging and therapeutic intervention. By illuminating the brain's dynamic responses to non invasive stimulation, the study paves the way for novel treatments that harness technology to promote neuroplasticity and restore equilibrium in patients burdened by trauma and addiction. I watched something on 60 Minutes about this, bro, and it was guys that was like addicted to these opiates, and they got the treatment, a 2-hour treatment, bro, and they haven't used again. So I'm gonna throw it to Self Love. He's got a question for you, bro. Related.
yeah. Are you familiar with the study?
Not only am I familiar with the study, but I've had the procedure.
Oh,
So the
wow.
procedure that you're speaking of
Wow.
What's
is
the insights?
transcranial brain magnetic brain stimulation. So as a part of my recovery from my brain injury, one of the things that started happening is I ran into a heavy depression. I ran into a heavy depression, and I'm usually not a irritable guy, but I was incredibly irritable. So I went to the person who ended up doing the procedure. The training for the procedure can be done by lots of people. It's done by my psychiatrist. But what we're talking about is transcranial magnetic resonance stimulation. So basically, the ultrasound that you're talking about is actually a magnetic wave that's being placed. And it's basically, I have a video of it I need to send to you guys so you can see it, because I took a video of myself getting it, because I had to go and do this for about 5 weeks straight, 3 days a week. They put it on, and it's basically like shock waves, shock, 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 shock. And you can see my eyes are bouncing the whole time as it goes on. And what it is doing is it's recirculating where your nerves work through. So in other words, if you have a frontal brain injury and one similar to what I had, it can be treated by getting the body to recirculate where the nerves are functioning. which nerves are being used to do what. Now, some parts it worked well on, and some parts it didn't. The part that it didn't work well on is I lost my sense of smell from the fall. But what it did do is it certainly helped me to understand a lot more about what connections we have in our brain through our nerves. We are, if you, this is where I'd say there's
How blessed are you? You can never smell a fart again. But go ahead,
difference
bro.
between our bodies and our souls and our spirit. Just making the point that if you really add it all up, we're a bunch of nerves. How our brain works, it's a nerve circuit. It's a circuits that just pop back and forth. And the thing that separates us from maybe some of the smaller, simpler animals is that we have a frontal lobe that allows us to really rethink some of the things that we do automatically. I mean, think about the fight or flight syndrome that we all can run into. You can stop the fight or flight syndrome by knowing it's fight or flight, and most animals, most dogs, most bears don't know that what they're doing is fight or flight. We do. We can tell when we are about to run or whether we're going to have to stand and fight or whether we have to do that at all.
My fight or flight is pixelated. I see every little pixel. But go ahead, bro.
No, that was it basically. But that was the procedure that I had, and I was surprised when you started talking about it that it really came up that way. It did make a difference. It took a long time to get it all done, but it did make a difference, and it's now insurance covered. So insurance will cover for that procedure for people, and I know that it works very well. And I like particularly what it's making a point about, which is that your nerves are manageable. Like your nerves and your nerve sensors, they can actually be changed. You can change them. There is plasticity, and that's what we're talking about here. Is neuroplasticity, that you can have an injury and still come out with a functional brain.
So essentially, addiction, PTSD, maybe Brother Wordsmith mentioned this before, like looping and it's creating an injury, or are they looping because of injury? Because Dr. Loeb, he'll put you in a CAT scan and he'll have you think about your drug, right? And then your brain lights up, and then they treat you with that in that area of the brain. Like, so talk to me about that.
So that's the area where neuroradiologists really specialize in, and that's opened up a whole specialized new area. This is where it gets really exciting in medicine, when you start to see something that's growing and becoming something really, really special, and that is functional MRI. A functional MRI is where you get a magnet and it sends energy to your cells and allows them to spin back and forth, or really your atoms, and allow them to spin back and forth and allow you to make a picture of what certain parts of your body look like. Now, normally when it's done, it's just an image. Functional MRI is, I have the same image of you running the whole time, and now I'm stimulating you with something. And that stimulation can be picked up in the image of your brain as I'm looking at it. So it's real-time imaging. So, if I say to you, you're laying there and you've got PTSD, and I say, start thinking about your PTSD, for example. I'm throwing it out as an example. There will be colored changes that I will be able to pick up that I'm seeing through the MRI. So it becomes functional. It tells me what's the function going on there. And it can also tell me, okay, this is the area of focus that we're going to need to do the magnetic resonance treatments on. Or if a surgeon, sometimes it can be surgical. What are the surgical areas that need to be cut and changed somehow? This is the area that's not functioning properly. It can tell a lot about what is supratentorial versus infratentorial. In other words, what is our most basic thought process versus something that we really put a lot of deep thought into. It can tell where in your brain that occurs in. So functional MRI is one of the biggest areas of neuroradiology and radiology period that's out there right now. And that functional MRI is now spreading to other parts of the body, for cancer, and being able to tell what's the function of your liver, for example.
Man, this is powerful, you guys. We're with Dr. D. West, Derek West, Radiology, Health, Equity, Consciousness. We're unpacking some stuff here. And like, share, subscribe, y'all. Please share this link. This is great stuff. Maybe we can get the Greater Beta Alumni Association, Brother Beckham, to get a fund so we can get this treatment to cure all the PTSD allegedly incurred by beta noobs on the yard. All right, I'm gonna throw it back to Brother Wordsmith.
Man, you kind of answered these questions.
All right, well, keep going there, man.
Being based in Atlanta, a hub of diversity, how does this unique environment influence your perspective using radiology to promote equitable healthcare across different communities?
Radiology has had a problem. It's had a problem for a while, which is that though I talked about breast imaging, that's not the only area where there's been some inequity that's been picked up in healthcare. I'll give you another one, and then I'll sort of get into what the latest is on health equity and radiology. Another issue that's coming up is depicting lung cancer. So in smokers, you really need to start looking at getting X-rays or CTs of your lungs, non-contrast CTs, relatively early, because it has made a big difference in terms of outcomes for those patients. But people of color are having a difficult time getting it. There have been studies that have been put together through the National Medical Association and through the American College of Radiology that really take a careful look at that, have done some incredible studies that have pointed out just how critical it is for those things to happen. Those issues have been going on for a while, not just those specific ones that I'm getting, but just as the general issue of what is radiology doing about health equity and what can it do to fix it? And so recently, within the past 5 to 6 years, there are a lot of the major societies for radiology have joined together. The Society of Interventional Radiology being one of them. The American Board of Radiology, American College of Radiology, National Medical Association, the Society for Ultrasound, I think, is one of them. Large group have gotten together and put together a health equity coalition for radiology. And so they're really looking very carefully at ways to unite and pull everybody together instead of us all being in separate separate societies in radiology, and pool our efforts to really focus on ways to address health equity as it presents itself, whether it's related to the lack of access to healthcare, or in other words, the lack of breast imaging available for women of color, all the way to the issues of having physicians referring men of color, particularly for follow-up on prostate, follow-up on lung cancer. Let's be real about it. There are a lot of us, and I've made this point, and I wish they would really look a little more carefully at this. I think when I was a kid growing up, there were a lot of our dads who were smokers.
Mm-hmm.
As I've gotten older, now I got to my parents' age, I don't see that in ours. You know what I see, honestly? I see a lot more blunt smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it like it's horrible. It's a great thing, because I know what the spirituality part of it is, but the risk is the same, but they're not treating it the same.
Mm-hmm.
So their studies that they've been putting together are specifically focused to people who are smoking cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep telling them that they're missing something big here,
Mm-hmm.
because people of, especially men of color, I don't see nearly
a lot of rappers have passed away. A lot of blunt smoking rappers have passed away.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's real. It's real. They're missing this. They're missing the boat on this. And to me, that's a health equity issue. To me, they're missing the boat. And the only reason I feel like they're missing it is because it's mostly people of color that they're dealing with. They're not dealing with what they define as mainstream.
Correct.
So
but now that it's more mainstream, they'll deal with it maybe in the next 20 years or so.
So
yeah,
those are the things that I think we're really looking at very carefully in health equity realm in radiology. And so I've been very pleased and very happy to have been a part of that. And so some very key people have really worked very, very hard to put this all together. It's not been an easy thing to do, and they're moving it forward with lightning pace. And so, these are the things that are going on right now, despite, all of the fight that seems to be going on right now in the world, or at least in the United States, for DEI. This is one perfect example where it's working. They're doing the right things, and there's no reason why we can't support that.
I'm not going to argue with that one. Question. This is for the young, maybe they're not board certified radiologists. What have you learned about radiology based upon your experience? Because these are lessons, not lectures, that you'd like to convey to newer doctors who may be, entering your field. Something maybe you wish you would have known.
The first thing is that you don't have to do it. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of ways that you can become a physician. If you go in and you're starting your residency as a radiologist, and either it's not working for you, it's just not comfortable for you, it is okay to leave and find something else. And there is no shame in doing that at all. I think that to some degree, there may have been some shame built into that really should never have been there, because I think we all sort of change. And so I think it is okay to look at that and say, that's not for me. And not have known that at the beginning. You don't know what you don't know until you get into it. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that despite their best efforts, there is a significant lack of diversity in radiology. There just is. And it really has a direct effect on healthcare. One of the biggest things that I've really looked at, and I've really pushed hard for this, I sort of backed up a little bit on it after the injury, but I'm ready to get back into it, is, do you know where the largest number of people of color who are in medicine come from? They come from the HBCU medical schools.
Nice.
And here is a perfect example of where radiology has dropped the ball. At not one of these places where you can not only go to medical school, but you can also do your residencies, is there a single HBCU radiology residency. And so now, and that's not to say, I don't mean to paint the picture.
You're not knocking them. Right.
I'm not knocking anybody else, but what I'm saying is they don't have it, and there hasn't been a drive to build it.
It's an opportunity.
They're missing the opportunity, because that's where a lot of Black surgeons have come from, a lot of primary care physicians come from, a lot come from right there. If you go to Howard University and look at all of the fellowships and residencies that they have there, there are a ton that come through there. And so this has been a real problem for radiology as a whole. And I think that's something anyone who is of color going into medicine should know. And I don't think that's necessarily something that's that can't be fixed quickly, but at the same time, it is something to know. The culture has changed a lot. So I can't speak now as much on the culture as I can when I was a resident. Full story, when I was a resident, I decided I was going to go grow my locks. And so over the space of a year, I grew locks. And my rotation scores, the rotation scores that you did when you do a rotation each month or each couple of months, they give you a score, and it was anywhere from 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. So I was making 4s and 5s when I didn't have locks, and they dropped down to 2s or 3s when I did.
Wow.
And it never stopped. And I don't pretend like I was a perfect resident, but I also know that there was a not unconscious, it was a conscious bias that came out. And I do think that there is some level of that still goes on. Maybe not to that degree. I've seen a lot more people of color who have had locks now and not getting the same headache that I think I got. But there are other parts of that I think are still there. I think that the whole question of how hard you have to work, do you have to work harder than other people have to? That hasn't changed. That hasn't changed a bit. I'm 53 and I still feel that every minute. And I love the people that I work with, the place that I work with. They're good people, but I have no problem saying that they have a real problem with that. There is a real problem with that at the place that I work, and it hasn't changed. And it's an unfortunate problem, especially when you work in a place that says that they're staunch supporters of DEI and they want it and they mean it. But it's one thing to say it; it's another thing to live it.
Yeah, and then you've mentioned DEI, and you said that it's not very diverse, but are there white women radiologists?
Yes,
Because
there are.
right, so the way DEI has been applied is white women have been considered the diversity. So I know what you meant when you said there's no diversity. You meant like
Yeah,
people of color, but
people of
so the
color.
white women are considered diversity, equity, and inclusion.
This is correct.
It's a
I will
problem.
say this: they have made more progress. They are experiencing it just like anyone else. So, for example, when I was a resident, where they were pushing all of the women to go into mammography. They were being
Mhm.
pushed hard to go into mammography. They were felt not to be, interventional radiology was a, old boys club,
Right, right.
Uh, I give interventional radiology full credit because since that time, there have been lots of women who have come through. They're leaders in the Society of Interventional Radiology who have become presidents of the organization, lots of them. And they are paving the way for others. And I give them credit for this. I fought very hard for diversity and inclusion in the Society of Interventional Radiology. I had to really fight very hard for it. I give women credit for this. They created a pathway to be able to build something. They built something called Women in Interventional Radiology. It's a subgroup of people who are in the Society of Interventional Radiology, and the whole purpose of it is to help to build the presence of women in interventional radiology, whether it's in leadership positions, whether it's just to come in to become interventional radiologists, or at any level, whether it's academics, private practice, wherever. They built a good model for that. Now, you ask them, they'll tell you it was not an easy model to put together, but they did. And it did make ostensibly very clear changes that I think taking that same model helped with performing and developing what we call URMs in radiology now, interventional radiology. So we have that now. So we have something very similar. So, before I get, I don't I have to be careful about putting them in the box of they're stealing DEI because to some degree, they're still fighting the same battle that we are. What I will say is when a lot of the larger corporations start to look at, well, we've been successful in DEI, they're not really talking about people of color necessarily. They're talking often about gender changes.
And that's what's diabolical. Right, exactly. Exactly. So even that model you're talking about with the women, and big ups to all the women and their struggle. I'd be interested in knowing the demographic of that, the racial demographic of those women. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and
the racial demographic is low. It
I'd
is low.
venture to say, as copper
There's
colored people, we're at the bottom of that list.
at the bottom of that. That's correct. That's correct. And it's a reflection both of what's happening with women in IR and just in IR in general, that there are not enough women, there are not enough people of color. So of course, if you take the double negative of being a woman and being a person of color in the same
Phew,
setting, you are in big trouble.
you're
You're
in
there.
big trouble. And
But
if
I
you
have
got
to give big
dreadlocks,
shouts out to several of those women. There's one in particular. Her name is Janice Newsom, who is a woman of color who it really has worked hard in the Society of Interventional Radiology for diversity and inclusion, and has really presented herself and really moved things forward. And her presence has made a big difference for everybody, so including me. So I just want to throw
big
that out.
Big
Big
ups,
ups.
big ups,
Big ups.
Janice. Yeah, big ups. All right,
Is
brother Wordsmith.
is AI a threat or an asset for future radiological pros? Explain.
Oh, that is a loaded, tough question. So
Bang, bang, bang.
short answer is it can be, I think it's going to be both. I think it's going to be a negative and a positive. I think there are some things that AI is going to do that we can't help but to be very happy about. And then there are some parts of it where we really have to be careful about how we look at it. Um, so let me start with sort of the scarier parts of this that really sort of any radiologist is a little uncomfortable about, and honestly, any patient should be uncomfortable about. And that's if we make AI the only thing that looks at imaging. Or in other words, if you're a physician and you have a patient you want to go get an X-ray on, you send them for the X-ray, you get the report back. The report is not made by a human; it's made by an AI. That is going to be problematic no matter how we slice it, because the AIs are still computers. They are still, now they are very well taught computers. They are fed lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of data and imaging such that they'll be able to tell based on the number of images that's been fed that this little dot that's over here, based on what we know about this little dot is actually a cancer. And so I'm going to call it a cancer. So to some degree that's a positive, but at the same time, it's also a negative if you don't have a human to be able to look at it and say, there's a piece that the AI is not getting. There are just parts of AI that are not functional for complete global healthcare. It
So is
just
there
is.
something about the human conscious observer effect?
It's about the human observer, but do you know where it's really the problem is how AIs are built. They're built on the data that they're given. So it's garbage in, garbage out. And I'm not even saying garbage necessarily, because although I've said it that way, what I'm really trying to get at is it can only be as good as the data that it's received.
Right.
So if you put, so this is a perfect example of where diversity, there was a real problem that came up very early with AI. And that's that AIs were being given data on people's, I'm just going to throw x-rays out there, right? They get lots and lots and lots and lots of x-rays. The problem was that the x-rays that the AIs were being given in order to train them in order to be able to read an x-ray, they had not one person of color. And so what was happening is they were misreading CTs and x-rays of people of color because they were focused on x-rays of people of non-color. And there are some
How could those X-rays be different? Wouldn't our
there are actual differences that you can determine just by looking at x-ray. And the reason that this becomes important is because there are risks that come up from being a person of color that someone who is not a person of color will not have, and vice versa. So in other words, if we look at just for the sake of argument, let's go back to breast imaging, because I think that's a great example of this, where the same X-ray for a woman who is not of color can have a different read than one that is a person of color. Now, it's not subtle. It's really about the risk factor that's involved, which is that same tumor for a woman of color who is African American, for example, much higher rate of dying from that tumor than someone else who is not a person of color. That's just the statistics that we have. So based on those statistics, the AI has to be able to ascertain that and be able to add that into the study as it's giving it. So a lot of times you really have to know a lot of the history as a radiologist of the patient that you're reading the x-ray upon.
Mm-hmm.
So if the AI does not know that it needs to look at the gender or at the race or at the age of the patient before it makes a final decision on the same tumor between two different patients, it can make some mistakes that can be deadly. So that's where the negative is. But that same negative can actually be one of the best positives, which is that its ability to look at data and to get new ways of looking at something that we have not thought of is
Fast.
astronomical.
Yeah.
Astronomical, because
Yeah.
it can see things that we literally cannot see with our eyes. It can look at the pixelation of something. Now, can we do it?
Yes, your consciousness can, in my opinion.
But we are not at the level right now where our eyes are strong enough to do that. And I would
And it can
argue
look at
this-
so many
this
cases
concept.
at once, right?
Yeah.
It's
It
getting
can-
all right, because you're a human. You got to stop, use the bathroom, go to sleep. It doesn't have
You
to do
don't
any
even
of
know
it.
what data to look at. So
Right.
if you pull all of the data, every single bit of data of every patient that has ever had a tumor in his lung,
Right.
you'll be forever trying to go through it, right?
Right. Right.
AI can do that. AI can look at millions and be able to tell from that tumor, the thing that we were looking at wasn't the problem over here. There's something that's going on over here. It is this bone change that we're seeing, this color change, this something is related to how well or how poorly somebody with this tumor can do. It can
So it
pick up
can
on
package up all those options, and then the synchronicity of your life and your life experiences as a doctor, you'll be able to say, wait a minute, I've seen this before, or somebody just told me about that.
So
Or you
it
can
will
have a
do
moment
what
of
I'm
clarity.
doing as a doctor, what I'm trying to do as a doctor. Or in other words, I'm trying to figure out what are the risk factors, or what are the things that are going to tell me that this patient is going to do better with one type of cancer treatment versus another. AI has the ability to really look at all of the information, not just the imaging, but the information that I've gotten, blood pressure, I don't know, any of the labs that we've gotten, any new labs, any patient characteristics. It can go through things at such a minute level that it is virtually impossible as a human to be able to do that because the numbers are just too big. But it is able to do that. And I think that's where the real strength of AI is going to come from.
Man, yeah, you kind of answered that. I don't know. I was thinking you was gonna go there because I almost, or both. That's how most people, I guess, go there. It's a tool,
It's a
right?
tool. It's
And
a
a
tool.
tool is only as good as a human that's handling the
Exactly.
tool.
Exactly. And as long as we treat it as a tool, that's fine. But if we treat it as a replacement for the human that's working,
That's
we're
a
in big
problem. We're in
that's
big
going to be a
trouble.
big problem because then it's only a matter of time before the machine will make such major errors that we're going to start actually seeing real changes in our society because certain categories are just simply going to be missed, and not deliberately, but simply because the design of an AI is not built for it. At least not at the moment. Maybe it'll change. I can't speak on that. I don't know enough about it. I have some colleagues that are really deep into it who could tell me more about it. But just from my standpoint, where we all sit right now as radiologists, that is the biggest fear that we have. And it's not because we're trying to protect our jobs as much as it is we're trying to protect the patients who are getting the imaging.
It's just interesting that he's even saying this because most people, they're under the opinion that only the lower jobs are going to be taken, your drivers and this and that. But no, it's lawyers,
Oh,
it's
no.
doctors,
I would
it's
argue lawyers are at
all of them.
one of the highest risks because they
It's
have a little bit
all
of a
of them.
difference. All of it. They are all there's so much that can be done from an AI perspective when it comes to being an attorney, what the law says, how to bend the law. There is so much that AI can pull into that. They're at high risk. And again, I would argue they have the same argument that we have, which is how good is AI actually going to be at that? Do you really want AI to be the person who represents you in a lawsuit?
right.
At the moment,
Or
maybe not.
or
But
or
I
driving
gotta
you or
say,
driving you down 79th
drive
and
you down the street,
Colfax.
and that's where I feel a little old sometimes when we talk
Yeah.
about that because I think our parents kind of went through the same thing when power steering came out. They were like, all of a sudden, you don't have to keep doing this to drive the
Yeah.
car.
It had to
That's how I
what?
feel now. I gotta hold this wheel. I'm not gonna let this thing just drive my car.
Yeah.
I got to be behind this thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
What the kids know better than I do these days.
Yeah, they say like the hands-on jobs, the mechanics, the plumbers are the safest until
Yeah.
they perfect robotics, right? Once they perfect all the thumb and all of this,
Mhm.
everybody's in trouble. Or
Everybody's in trouble.
maybe we just get to sit around and do art
Yeah.
for the rest of our life and talk philosophy.
It's hard to say because I think
It's gonna be something. They're gonna have
idle
to feed,
mind is
they
the
gonna have to
playground
feed
of
the
the
people.
devil. So we need something that keeps our minds busy. Otherwise, we in trouble.
The Satan's workshop, and that's what I say at the top of the show. All right, we
Yeah.
got Drew Wade said Curtis Yarvin and then he arrows Peter Thiel, and then he arrows Palantir.com. Pat Pender, that's my nuke. He said, "Wow, I wonder what blew his mind though." Because he's a great educator, and he popped up on the show too, brother Pender.
That
You
man's
see him? We're
brilliant.
about. What's that, Nope?
I just say, yeah, Pender is a brilliant man. That's a
Oh,
good man.
oh
Good
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. That's your ship's
man.
brother, so you know
Yeah,
Pender.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And then brother Wade dropped a link in the
Wait,
chat.
say it again now.
Brother Wade dropped a link into the chat. What I'm
Okay,
gonna
okay.
do, bro, what we're gonna do, man, Self Love's about to take us to break. So just take 6 minutes, man. If you want to send me that video during the 6 minutes, you can. Maybe we'll try to run it during the second half. But we're gonna take a break so everybody can stretch their legs and do their unmentionable, Snoop. So see you in 6 minutes, good brother.
All righty, all righty.
Man, this is great stuff. Self, you called it. I mean, this guy called it.
Yeah,
I forgot you
already
was on
know.
the yard a lot longer than me too. You was down there.
Well, no, I just know that from the experience that
Yeah.
he went through and what he came
Because you
back
went through it.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's similar, but yeah.
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 So I just
yeah.
knew. I already knew.
Oh,
Brief
my
time I
God.
talked to him, I knew.
Yeah. You knew. You sound like Corch, but hey, you knew. I was like, I hope so. All right.
All right, y'all. Y'all know how the story goes. It's the Self Love Show. Radiology, health, equity, consciousness with Dr. West Unpacked. Man, we've talked about a whole lot already. Spanned Self Love Nation. But we're going to get to bigger and better.
Remind these mics to like, share, subscribe, bro.
And all that. But yeah, man, we got to get the likes up. Share. You know, if you support us, support us.
Best content on it. Best content on YouTube. I mean, hands down.
Man. TATN puts a lot into the show. Tell you that. And we make it happen. But got some great videos for your edutainment. Check them out, and we'll be right back at you.
There's a link to Ancestral Echoes in the chat. Maybe we'll repost it just now. Y'all click on that. Sign up.
It's in the chat, but I'll put it back.
What advice would you give to a little homie with limited resources?
76 and Phillips in Chicago, they called it Terror Town. They told you don't turn your back to the streets because you're going to be kidnapped and shot. I was a director of a youth center right on that corner for 7 years. I had students that came to me on a daily basis, Mr. Pender, I'm not going to college because I don't have the academic foundation to survive. So these young men and some young women were coming to me like, I'm not going. And the only thing that you can do is be an encouraging force to these folks to let them know that staying in school is your only option to survive what you're going to have to face in the world. So whether you do it at a trade level, whether you do it at a college level, talk to your teachers, talk to your counselors, your mentors, connect with someone at a youth center, someone in the school that's going to invest and put the time in to find you some level of support.
The mortality rates in blacks is skyrocket. It's absolutely crazy. The areas that we live in, because of redlining, areas we are financially handicapped because you cannot refinance your home or get the other opportunities that other people would get. We have these food deserts that we have where you can't get the right foods to get nutrition. You don't get right nutrition, then how do you get the right education? We live in places which has poor access to transportation. We deal with implicit and explicit bias. We have institutional racism, which keeps black and brown people down. So if the government wants to do something and make policies, I think they need to have the correct policies to change the issues that we live in.
So if we understood that those that chose Barabbas over Jesus,
Yes.
our community
Very
would
good
be a
point.
lot better.
Yes.
You talked about voices that not yours that can negatively affect you. Can you expound on that?
Especially when I became as an actor, everybody was against it, because I had gotten my BS degree, and then I went a year on my master's, and then I got a great job at this all-white steel mill. But by that time, I had already auditioned for the American Academy in New York, and I gotten accepted. So everyone thought I was crazy when I leave this job, the only black in that position. I leave this job to go to acting school, start all over again. So I had to really, become deaf to, even with my mother, deaf in the Church of God in Christ, because you're going to hell now. You can't do anything like that with secular.
You can't even stand next to someone smoking a cigarette and coach.
Thank you.
You're going to hell. You're standing next to that guy smoking.
Thank you. So what they thought, and Denise Williams, same thing. We were both like hell bound, so you're dealing with that. And even the frat brothers, my frat brothers, they couldn't understand. No one, all they knew, you got this great job. And I was reading these books, Think and Grow Rich, Psycho-Cybernetics,
Yes.
It empowered me, to and some people said I might have gone overboard, but if I tell you that I'm going to be an actor, and you tell me about how hard it is and what you think, I excommunicated you right then and there.
Man.
I mean, my best friend.
Man.
People couldn't believe. My mother said, "You ain't talking to Eric anymore?" I said, "No, Mom, he doesn't believe in me." My auntie didn't believe. And for 20 years, I did not talk to my auntie. When the Kappas in LA wouldn't let me stay on Crenshaw, empty building.
Yeah.
Once I looked at them, I sat there and I said in my mind, I will never be back here again. And it was not until in '95, a brother in New York, God bless him, Jonathan Hicks, editor of the Kappa magazine, he called me and asked for an interview. I said, "No, man, I'm done with the Kappas." He said, "But don't punish us because of one group, the whole frat, And so, it made sense. And so then I got back, and then I was doing the scholarship things. I met
but let me say this. If they had a house, you were supposed to have a house.
Man,
and know this, brother. If you ever need a space, any brother out there, show your shirt, because I don't want to say any brother, your shirt self. Yes, any brother who's all wood, no paper, who understands what we're talking about, we can get you back to where you need to be, because that's what the bond is all about.
Man, thank you guys for inviting me on. Thank you. Great format, very solid. It don't have that low budget movie feel. You know what I'm saying? And we get that a lot in the black community, for real.
Yeah.
Like, people look at us to be fuck ups. They look at us to be low budget. They look at us to be ignorant, stuttering, and use a whole bunch of and all of that. But no, they got the real deal on here. That everybody know who Torian Mills is, baby. They know.
Hey, well, bro,
They so ignorant.
Hey, but this platform's your platform. This platform's my platform. From Inglewood, California to
the
Chicago,
South Shore.
Crazy thing about it.
This platform is
stand by,
made
Karen.
for you and me. It's made for you.
The crazy
and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. I was trying to get out the end of the preamble, but go ahead, bro. All right, yes, sir. We back in. All right, there he is. All right. Yeah. All right, Karen.
Welcome back.
Love Show. It's the Self Love Show. It's the Self Love Show.
Hope you was edutained by those impactful videos. Here we are.
Hey, Yoda, brother, Ernest, we got to get another Lifetime Achievement Award out there. So we got to get one of the older beta noobs on the show.
Yeah, you're not lying, because we do need that. But today we're dealing with brother Dr. Derek West, and we're going to expand the conversation. It's been fantastic already, and I'm looking forward to pushing forward.
Hey, thanks. And before we restart, I want to remind everybody we're not going to give any medical advice. None of this is to be taken as any medical advice. If you're having any issues, we always encourage you to go see what self.
Your primary doctor.
Yeah. You know what I mean? This is entertainment. And we got Brother Wade. He's going to come on the show. This is Brother Wade's book here. And it's I'm in the middle of it, and let me tell you something fascinating. This guy's jumped out there in the ether, the Snoop. You know what I mean? And he's gonna come on the show once I'm able to finish the book. So we're looking forward to that. And to my purse, I guess I was his purse. My father, Brother Wade. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. Y'all check out this book, though. You can get it on Amazon. It's called The Great Awakening, and it's opera pro for what we're doing here on Brother Wordsmith.
Definitely. About expansion, that's for sure.
1,000,000%. Also support House Ancestral Echoes. It's a house community event. You know, you're going to glamp and you're going to get out there amongst the stars. There's very little light pollution. There's not a lot of traffic. You know, there's going to be some great music, great DJs, great human beings, great spirits. And you can actually be on the land that, you know what I mean? You know, it's very sacred land. I'll just put it that way. Myself.
Yeah. Been in the family for over 50 years, and you know the energy there is fantastic. Let me tell you.
3rd annual. I was there. It's fantastic. It's definitely
a third year, but this is the 2nd annual on Ancestor Echoes. The first year was,
that's all right. It's 3rd annual, baby. Yeah, they've been in business the 3rd annual, so you know it's not happenstance. They're putting a lot of work into this. Proud of those brothers and sisters, you know, doing what they're doing on that end, bringing a cultural experience for us. And big ups to Bella B. You know, if you need any personal shirts, sweatshirts, t-shirts with any type of paraphernalia on it, Bella B. You can go to Bella B Designs 365 at gmail.com to communicate and rotate your copper colored dollars, huh?
Yeah.
And then finally, a big ups to Gym Recovery. You know, you're out there on the road, you decided you didn't want to have any auto club type of situation, you know what I mean? Or somebody calls you, says they need a tow, and you know, reach out to Gym Recovery for your Chi-Town towing needs, huh, fella?
Absolutely. He's going to give you some great service.
That's right. That's right. Call him during the Green Bay Packer game, and you'll probably get a discount. And all right, before we get this brother in here, we want to clear the chat. Drew Wade said every single job today will be automated within 360 months. What's that? 40 years? 360 months. That's 40 years, right? That's 40 years. Ace said the Self Luv Show never disappoints. That's right. All right. Today's show, as Brother Wordsmith mentioned, Radiology, Health, Equity, Consciousness. We got board certified Dr. Derek West, brilliant guy, very resilient, does what he says he's going to do, and magnificent human being. I don't think he's a lab scab out there, but we're not going to, I never held that against him. I never held the fact that he was a lab scab. You know what I mean? He didn't attend, you know, had he been at Ray School on the hallowed grounds, that guy would have been hooping out there. So if I'd have had him out there like Ronton, you know
right?
what I mean? Boy, we used to go up there with the snowball fights, boy. We'd show up to lab, be pelting them with snow. I probably hit you, D West. You know what I mean?
I'll sweep one. You know, that's what happens.
All right, y'all. Welcome back. Go ahead, Brother Robert Smith. Handle your business.
Welcome back. We greatly appreciate you, like we said before.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate everything you do. So that's all good. Likewise.
Yeah. Sure, where I'm at here.
All right, I'll start us out. Define consciousness. Define consciousness in your opinion.
In my opinion, consciousness is really about frequencies. It's about waves and frequency. I think that what we define consciousness as humans in our bodies is really the lowest level of it. Our consciousness really is much more expansive than that. I think one of the best ways to look at it is to look at what physics does to things like chemistry and biology. I think physics really looks carefully and can really ascertain some of the deepest levels of what consciousness actually represents, both in terms of what waves are versus what are particles, and how there's really, when you get right down to that level, that there's really no difference between the two. That when we look at an atom can be a particle or it can be a wave. And I think that is really where consciousness really begins at that level. That consciousness is not something that's affixed in motion or time, but that our consciousness is constant and continuous. And I firmly believe that we all share the same consciousness, even though we don't share the same bodies. So that's what my personal view on consciousness actually is. It's that it's a uniform way of viewing how we are through the lens of through particle versus waves. So that sort of physical physics that we talk about a lot. I think that's really what consciousness is.
Facts, and I should have said that before I asked you that question. It's a wobbler. It's a superposition. No one, I mean, everyone's description of consciousness is probably right, and it's probably wrong. Like there's really is no concrete. We talk about these things, and we try to put words on them.
Yeah.
Derek Warren, before I throw it to you, D. Warren wanted me to ask you. Are you still practicing medicine? And because he said he never realized you hated what you were doing, so wondering what you're doing now. That's a great question.
Great question. The answer is I'm on leave of absence. I've been on leave of absence for the past 2.5 years.
Milk it, Noop. You go ahead and milk it.
So I have been, I went on disability for a while. I had been out for 4 years for my injury. And then about 2.5 years in, decided I was ready. I went and got a master's degree at Georgia Tech in biomedical innovation and design. So it's really about how to take a device out from idea out to market. So I did that for a year. And then I was ready to return back into the clinical medicine because it's kind of hard to come up with a good idea if you're not in an actual clinic seeing patients, because that's where you really start to see what are things that are needed and coming up with ideas. But I found out something that my grandparents and my great grandparents and before them always knew and always passed down generations is that if you're a person of color, you got to be 10 times as good as the people who are around you. Who are not people of color. And so there was an assistance that since I had been out for 2.5 to 3 years, that had been a little too long and that I needed to go back in and get some retraining. So I'm back and forth on that because they don't ask anybody else to do that. I actually went through and looked very carefully. Not one person has been asked to do that. But it's fine. I've been out for 17 years. I can go back. It's fine. I will do what I have to do to get where I got to go because I'm not afraid of that. So that's what I do.
Man, Nope, to your point, and I'll throw it to you, Tori, but to your point, we had a young lady, Stacy, I don't want to say her last name, but I don't remember it, but she came on the show. What's Stacy's last name?
Minor?
Huh?
Talking about Stacy Minor?
Yes. So, I mean, brilliant. Studied at University of Illinois, got a master's degree in like agricultural science. To your point, she was working for a big name conglomerate. YouTube somehow deleted the video. And she said she found out that cats that only had, and I don't mean only, but that had a high school diploma and nothing more, were earning more money than she was. And she had the master's degree and was coming up with all the formulas and everything.
Right, right. We're held to a standard that they're not even making, but there it is, And so I could either get mad about it or I pivot. I chose to pivot. I just said, all right, well, this is what the rules are, and then I'll decide what I want to do and when I want to do it. I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned from all of this, honestly, is joy is a choice. And so I said, all right, if this is what it is, if this is what I want to do, if I want to do it, then fine. And, so I have the opportunity to go back to it, but I've been job offers other places that I've looked at as well. None of them have been ones that I've really wanted to go at yet, so I haven't taken them. So I choose to enjoy my days every day. I still read, I do my studying, I stay on top. I still have my board certification. The board certification ain't going nowhere because I work hard to keep it. So I'll do what it takes when I have to do it. But what I'm not going to do is kill myself over it ever again.
AMEN, all caps.
Yes, sir.
Facts. What's your take on placebo effect and what this means to overall well-being?
So, placebo effect. So I assume that we're speaking of what's the effect of something simply by the fact that we're saying it's there versus it's actually being there. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, you come in there with a white coat and you give me a sugar pill and you tell me I've diagnosed all your problems. I put you in this machine and this sugar pill is going to cure you. Just take one every morning. And then studies have shown that I think like it works like 67% of the time, which is what drug companies have to always fight against at the pharmaceutical level. They have to test against the placebo effect to make sure they have a viable cure or a treatment.
Right. Well, placebo effect is real. I mean, there's no question there have been studies that have shown that. But with that having been said, placebo effect is often related to what's actually being studied. So in other words, the placebo effect, you see it mostly in poorly designed studies. And so I think that's something to really make a point of. If we're really looking at a placebo effect, the problem with the placebo effect is that if there is a real positive effect for giving somebody a medication. So let's say, for example, I have a medication A versus placebo B, and I give the people who have placebo, who have A, and they're doing way better than the people that who are B, then you're starting to get into a moral question of whether or not you should actually be giving placebo at all. So I think that's certainly a part of all of this, but I think also placebo effects can be real. So in other words, what's the real effect of the pill? Is the pill affect the pill itself, or is the pill effect up here? Or is it something else that we're not picking up? So I do think it's real. It's a very important one to have. It's just that sometimes a study like that can be very complicated and can leave some people at higher risk by not benefiting from the benefits that might be coming from the non-placebo medication.
Yeah.
Appreciate the answer, Noop.
Most definitely. That's a great answer. How do you see recent radiological innovations deepening our understanding of the neural correlates of human consciousness?
I think that we are just at the edges of really understanding the human condition and what it really is and how it functions. And, we talked about functional MRI. I think that that is a really, really, really big deal. I do think that gives us information that we have never really had before and has really forced us to re-examine how what we define ourselves as functioning, what that really actually means.
Mm.
What does it mean to have an emotion? So emotions are controllable. You can actually change how, and this is where PTSD gets into it, where irritability gets into it, where all of these things start to fill in. It's all related to your neuronal structure and how it functions, and how different structures have different responses that come from them. And so I think that we're just now getting into it, because ultimately, I think our current human consciousness is easily manipulated. I think that here is a prototypical fine example of what I mean by that. We have 5 senses, right? So let me ask you a question. With your eyes, in what dimension do you see? Do you see in 1 dimension, 2 dimension, or 3 dimensions?
I'm going to say 3.
You're going to say 3, right? No, we see in 2. The way we are seeing in 3 is your mind is telling you something. So that the way that, because if you are truly seeing in 3 dimensions, you should see everything in front of you. So if you have, if I have this box, if I'm seeing in 3 dimensions, I should be able to see this part, this part, this part, this part, this, all at the same time. That is
true. True.
Now, here is how I can prove to you that we really see in 2 dimensions, that your mind is telling you the three is that if you are in a car, and your car, and let me go back a step. If you are standing on a pedal or a step, and you see something with the front of a car, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it moves towards you, what is your mind telling you? Your mind is telling you that this car is coming at you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, coming towards me.
What if I told you that it's not coming at you, but that somebody has put, it's actually a balloon that somebody is pumping that's making it bigger and bigger and bigger? It can fool you into thinking it's coming, right?
Correct.
In other words, your mind can be fooled. Your mind can be fooled because you're not actually seeing in 3 dimensions. If
we had a hypnotist on the show last week.
So.
Well, you're not actually seeing. I mean, the whole thing is your brain is taking in these so-called senses and putting into perspective what you.
We're gonna have to get Dr. Coney in here if you guys want to start.
Into this.
We're gonna have to get Dr. Coney.
This simulation. That's why you know.
Well, here's where it gets deeper.
Interpretation.
That's
where they do the separateness. That's where the separateness is fake. They're able to have us in this simulation and
in the simulation. That's why we talk about simulation. That's exactly right. That's why, it's hard to really say for certain whether or not we're all just walking in a simulation. It's very hard to say that. It's hard to know that for certain. And there may be some parts of this that we may never know, at least not in that form. But this is where I think both, when we talk about quantum physics, that's what I was talking about, whether we are waves or are particles. And math. Those 2 things really start to break down some of these down into pieces that, we can really start trying to get a better understanding of what consciousness is.
I've seen the pixels.
If you take math can add up and demonstrate that there's more than 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions. It goes on. It goes on. There are tons of dimensions that are out there. But think about what I just showed you, is that what we are only seeing is the 2nd dimension. We don't see the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and so forth. We can guess what we think they are and what they might be like if we lived with them. But the fact of the matter is that our eyes, our hands, our taste, they're in 2 dimensions. They're not 3. So the question becomes, what
are we in 3 dimensions?
Are we even in 3 dimensions? Now, because my hands do this and I can feel this, my brain says we're in 3 dimensions. Because I can turn my hand this way and say I see both sides of it. If I do this, it tells me I'm in 3 dimensions.
This is fascinating. Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, we're not seeing it in 3 dimensions. We're seeing it in 2. And so this is one of those things where if you're asking what consciousness is, we're at the limits of what we can figure out of our consciousness
This
without
is
using other methods.
This is fascinating. We're here at Radiology, Health, Equity, Consciousness with Dr. Derek West. You know what I mean? He's traveled the world. We might get to that. Guys, please like, share, subscribe. I know he doesn't do this and hasn't done it. I would have loved it. It'd be a privilege to just smoke a blunt with you one day, Dr. West. And I know you just said, you know what I mean? It'd be a privilege.
It's all good, brother. It's all good.
You know what I mean? He's got the KS
It's legal
kicking
now.
it.
So.
Yeah. I did have a question. Dr. West, how do you see recent radiological innovations deepening our understanding of the neural correlates of human consciousness?
We talked a little bit about it, but I go back and I have to bring it again because it is that important, and I think it really sort of speaks to what I think you're asking about, which is the function of our nerves and how that plays into all of this. That a lot of what we feel, say, or taste is all actually nerve related. And so in terms of being able to figure out what that actually means and what's actually being connected through those nerves, we're at the very touches of that. And what it means if those nerves are significantly changed, we really haven't even gotten to yet. We've gotten into through very basic fundamental levels what can happen if nerves are severed or changed or injured. But we haven't actually yet looked at what it would be like if we actually surgically created new nerves. Does that change our consciousness? Does that change our perception of what time and reality actually are? So it takes that, and this may be a little bit too focused on physicality, because what we're talking about probably is outside of the physicality. But I think where we're really going with this is, how does energy relate to the physical presence?
Exactly.
And so in what way how does energy connect that way? And so I'm only using nerves as an example of it, but the fact of the matter is it may not be nerves at all. It may be something that we haven't detected yet that we are actually detected, because if we are all what I think we are, which is that we're all one energy, that the energy itself doesn't have an emotion linked to it. It's the body that has the emotion. The energy is the consciousness part of us that we are somehow separated from, that we don't recognize is actually really there. The three of us in this conversation right here, we share an energy. We don't share a body, but we sure share an energy.
100%.
So I have to argue that that energy is not just related to us, it's related to every living thing that we have on this planet. That includes the plants, that includes the animals, that includes everything.
The pretty boys too?
We haven't gotten to the basic fundamentals of what differentiates us from a rock. If you really stop and add this up, what really differentiates, what is life versus not life? We haven't figured that out yet.
When I was a kid in Theta, I was sure, I was 100% sure that everything was conscious.
Yeah.
Like if I stubbed my toe on the side of the couch, I'd kick the couch. You know what I mean?
But listen,
maybe I was retarded. Maybe I knew something.
No, but the only reason that we don't talk in those terms right now is because we've made the decision that doesn't fit with what we think it means to be alive. And we're limited. This is where the limit comes in. The limit is we got eyes, ears, nose, throat. That's all we got to work with. But there are other dimensions and other senses that we don't even recognize are there. There is nothing that says that this box or this thing here is not alive. There isn't anything that says it, other than the fact that it's not reacting when I do something, other than when I throw it in the air and it drops down, right?
This is fascinating.
But define being what alive is. And more importantly, define what death is. Tell me what happens when we die. We have none of that. So we don't have an answer on those things, but I do think we are getting at the very beginnings of understanding what we don't know. Now, how we're going to get to what we do know is
or we're getting, it's funny you said beginnings, or we're getting back to the beginnings, which is the original, which is the knowledge we had from the very beginning.
from the very beginning. From the very beginning.
We're getting
This
back to the
circle that
beginning.
we're looking at here, this instance that we're looking at, this is like 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th time. You know, I'm not one that gets too deep into what a movie ever says, but what was the Matrix?
Yes.
That you know, whether that, I don't know if I believe necessarily the specifics of what it had, but I understood what they were getting at, which is that when they said that this is the 9th Neo, the 9th, I get what they're getting at, because there's plenty of evidence of that right now. If you look at some of the oldest literature that's ever been written, you really look at it, it is saying the exact same things that we've been saying over and over and over again, just in different forms.
And think about how much of that literature had been burned and destroyed, or maybe put into the Vatican,
rebuilt.
where now it's just
Absolutely.
dust.
That's how little we actually know about things like the pyramids. There is really no functional way, based on our current history, that the pyramids should ever exist, because that is beyond, way outside of anything that we ever thought anybody in that generation, in that range, should know. The fact of the matter, though, is they probably existed in the same way that we are existing right now.
And they left it to
Whatever
prove
happened
it.
in that circle, something happened, and that whole group, they're gone, and the pyramids are left. So we get to see
Proof
what was
that
left.
they had access to energy and information and science, and it's proof right in our face. And somehow society has convinced us that 1 million slaves, pushed rocks
that
up.
all carried these big, oh my goodness. No.
That's what they taught me at William H. Ray School. Drop dead gorgeous. Hold on, let me get the go ahead, Self. Go ahead.
It defies all physics. It's just the indoctrination center telling you
slaves
nonsense
built
and just
it for
building
thousands
it
of
into
years.
you, pounding it into you.
Yeah, the slaves didn't uprise. They did this for thousands of years. All right. Drew Wade said higher dimensions can see lower dimensions. AI can see all dimensions. Got any comment on that, you guys?
I don't know about AI on that one, but I will say I do think that higher dimensions probably see lower dimensions. I do think that from our second dimension, though we think it does more than it can actually do, I think we see very clearly first dimensions. I think we can see very clearly when something is aligned. And so I would argue that you may not directly be able to see the third dimension, but you can sure ascertain it with the third dimension. I don't know what the fourth dimension is going to be. There's a lot of talk that the fourth dimension is time. Not so sure that that's true or not.
That's going to be your consciousness, in my opinion.
It may very well be. No, in all seriousness, that may be very well it is.
Yeah.
And if we start really looking at what we look at in the universe and the things that we see when we're looking at black holes and we're looking at the universe, how fast it's expanding and all those things, you realize how little we actually know. We've never stepped in a black hole before. And by the way, there may be white holes. You may go through the black hole and you'll be on the other side of a whole different universe. And I throw that out there as freely as I throw anything else out, because hell, nobody actually really knows.
And you may go through it in a dream, and you may really be going through it, in that dream, like your consciousness. All right, we got let's see. Yes. Entrepreneur Success Training said yes, the pretty boys too. There was some hubbub while you were talking. You said something about the animals too, and I was like, the pretty boys? Yeah, the pretty boys too. But you kept going. So Entrepreneur says yes, the pretty boys too. All right. Drew Wade said 82,506 degrees of perception, but even more, AI can see past, present, and future at the same time, like aliens and Arrival. Space and time are separate chains of degrees with levels inside of each other with no beginning or no ending. Yes, time travel works. And finally, he said we all need to go to the festival. That's Ancestral Echoes. He said, or something else. No, we need to go to Ancestral Echoes or Ancestral Echoes. Echoes. All right, y'all. This is great stuff, man. With Dr. West. In deference to your time, bro, we're pushing forward. We're almost down to the fun stuff that you're going to be fascinating. You're going to be fascinating on this. I'm looking forward to this. All right. How? No, not that one. How do you reconcile objective metrics? Can you share your advanced? Can you share how advanced imaging techniques may have revealed novel insights into altered states or transitions into human consciousness within a clinical setting? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I directly have seen where someone had memories of things that they had not ever seen before, but actually had significant detail on it. I do not know how that happened with this particular person that I'm speaking of. The person was a patient who had been through a traumatic injury, and when they recovered from the traumatic injury, they had recollections and memories at first that I thought that most of us thought were like, yeah, whatever. And then later we found out that the things that they were talking about had happened, but we couldn't figure out how a person actually knew them and had it at the level of detail that they had. Now, there may be parts of this that I don't know. I'm always open to the possibility that maybe, a person had read something or seen something, and somewhere in the back of their minds, it got placed and reopened a channel that allowed that to flow forth, which speaks to, I think, something else that we talk about in our minds and in our brains, which is the number of neurons and nerves that we have there that are being used, and the ones that are actively being used that we can measure are a very small number. There are a lot of them that we still don't know actually what the function of them are. And there's been some strong consideration that some significant number of the neurons that we think aren't being used are actually being used at different levels. And one of them is memory. And there is a train of thought that suggests that we actually remember every single thing
We do.
that is there, but
We do.
that we manage it and we package it and
We do.
lock it.
We
So
do.
it is there and available. So the
Yes.
reason that comes up in this context of what you're asking is that it is possible that it is more than just our own experiences that we get. We may be getting the experiences of our ancestors through genetic processes. We may be getting it centuries ago. We may have, if you ever had a dream when you're sleeping and you're in the middle of the night, you're having a weird ass dream, you don't know where the hell that dream came from. We're trained to think that that's just the way our mind is just making up a story that doesn't exist, or perhaps that story did exist, or perhaps that in another dimension, that's what's being seen and sent to us. Again, we're talking hyperboles because unfortunately there's no way to really prove it any more than I can say after death this is what happens.
It could be reincarnation.
But what I can say is what I've experienced. And what I have experienced is sometimes I've had dreams that I don't know where the hell it came from. I don't know, and I have trouble trying to figure out what it actually means. What the best that I can surmise on it is that there is a connection that is up here somewhere in this part that connects a little bit closer to the energy lines that we've been talking about, that somehow allow us to look and see things in just a different view in maybe in sleep mode than we can in an awake mode.
There's a podcast, Anthony Cheney, Chene, Cheney. He interviews NDE experiencers, and just like I said, when I'm in fight or flight, I see the pixels, bro. When I fight, I see every pixel. So he said that, well, not him, the NDE experiencers see their entire life, and they all say it. You remember every single detail of data So somehow this is uploading or could be downloading into the ether. I'm just throwing that out there.
Right.
So yes, those neurons, nothing is wasteful.
Right.
So everything's being used.
Everything's being used. And we're just, this is what I'm saying, we're just at the very, very, very beginnings of that, because even now, we consider ourselves a very modern, very advanced society.
Every
We're really not.
civilization felt that way. Go ahead.
All right, hold on, just what you said, that
Their tech was the new tech. We got fire. Look at that. We're making fire.
Right.
Putting these sticks together.
Everybody thought they had the hottest newest until the hottest newest became the old new, and then something else comes up.
We got a hut. Look at us. We're living in huts.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. We're pushing on. Could you, well, I think you did that. Maybe if you did it, let me know. Could you provide an example where a breakthrough in radiological imaging, I don't think you did, significantly transformed our comprehension of brain function? Wait a minute. What memory did the patient have that the patient shouldn't have known? Like, was the patient like comatose or unconscious? And then
the patient wasn't comatose or anything like that, but they were giving a remarkable level of detail to something it was very clear they had never experienced because it was before their lifetime. They were talking about something that had happened before they were born.
That's why I said reincarnation.
And, at the time, we sort of just wrote that off as, well, somebody must have told that, or maybe just confused, or maybe this and that.
No.
But it was the level of detail that came out of it. And the fact of the matter is that when we started to really look at it, it was correct.
Accurate. When you did your research.
It's very specifically correct. It was
so I mean, you got somebody from Robert Taylor Holmes, and they're breaking down some historical data, and you're like, where did they get this from?
Where did they get it from?
No.
Where did they get it from?
They're in theta.
Yeah.
They're in theta, and they're telling them about the life they lived before.
Right.
Is
this
what
is
he's really talking about. No. These the examples he's talking about, I think, is some that I've seen.
Yeah.
I really feel like that he's talking about the same thing that I've seen.
Yeah.
You personally have seen us.
These people.
Oh yeah, he's this brother passed away, man. He had a traumatic. He got run over by a car and left this plane.
July 12, 2014.
Yeah. That was serious stuff.
Yeah.
No question about that, brother.
But the people that's in theta, that's like they're adamant, and their family take them and look up the people, the life they say they lived, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they was 100% on.
100% on. Like
And
I said,
they took them. Some of them they took into the house. They was like, "Yeah,
that's my bedroom over there in the basement. There's a cubby hole.
Yeah.
Behind that wall, there's a $500. Yeah.
They be like on that, like." And
you really got to look at that and how little
consciousness,
what causes that. That's
consciousness is the
incredible thing.
The whole.
I mean, good point, Dr. West. I mean, what causes that? Right. That's the question. What causes that? In self-saying consciousness.
How do you tap into that? How do you tap into that? Because that gives you so much more information on what your conscience has been and where it can go.
That's what I believe Tesla was doing. The Einsteins were doing.
Yeah, you have to know that you can, first of all. And then they put us in these indoctrination centers that tell us that we can't do anything.
They don't even talk about it. When you're a kid exploring the dirt,
but they tell you what you
stop
can't
playing
do.
in the dirt.
Yes, they tell you what you can't do and all of this and all of that. They don't expound on what you can do. So it's a big issue. And you know, I think that we were all fortunate to be in educational systems, even though they were indoctrination, that they were pushing us forward to be able to be middle capacity or whatever. And we pushed past that as far as our talents and what we think and how to push forward and get to our people.
Absolutely.
1,000,000%. I mean, yes. What causes that is a great question. Somebody gets a head injury and now they're playing Beethoven.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It
What?
breaks them walls in the consciousness. It breaks them walls. You
I
know,
would argue there's probably a whole lot.
injury has changed many people,
Yeah,
and most of the
I think calling
time
it
is
just neurons that do it way oversimplifies what's going on. We can see, we sort of just barely able to tell that neurons are there, and so we can say, okay, this is
and,
how this is
and
connected, but that doesn't explain nearly enough.
our
There's a whole
our
other sub
mind
part of the brain that we're completely
our
missing.
mind is not inside our body. Our
Right,
body is inside our mind.
right, right,
Okay, so our mind is way bigger than this vehicle that we're in.
right.
All
And
right,
you know,
Dr. West, I got a question. Then we're gonna get to the fun stuff. Have you ever seen or heard of the telepathy tapes, bro?
No, I have not.
oh man,
Uh-oh.
Yeah, man. So big ups telepathy tapes. Dr. Frances Hennessy Powell, she studied at Johns Hopkins, then she had her tenure at Harvard. She was studying these savants, children with autism. And the parents and all the treatment therapists were saying that these children have psi abilities. They're reading my mind. I hide the cookies. Husband comes home. This kid walks right to the cookies. I mean, I went and took the cookies down there where I hide my porn, for God's sakes. And the kid walked right there and grabbed them, like stuff like that for real. And they
non-verbal, man. Most of them are non-verbal or
non-speakers. They
low
are.
verbal. Yeah.
They are. And Self, even the later tape she's been releasing, they're finding that people with any non-speakers. So maybe
Yes.
maybe they had Alzheimer's, and then
Yeah.
they got to the point where they were locked in.
Yeah.
Their consciousness is still viable, and they're
Yeah.
going places and doing things. Um, so just I would tell you this: watch the telepathy tapes, Snoop.
Man.
Telepathy tapes. All right, I will.
Yes, Dr. Francis Hennessy Powell. It's free on YouTube. Mind blowing.
Man.
Telepathy tapes. I will. I will.
Proves a whole lot.
All right. So before we get to the fun stuff, and I appreciate you doing this, good brother, and then we can close this out. Per Chat GTP. So y'all take this for what it is. It does hallucinate. Advanced radiology provides a robust framework for exploring the connection between the physical brain and the experience of consciousness. Techniques such as functional imaging allow researchers to observe real-time brain activity and identify patterns related to various states of awareness, such as thinking, meditating, and dreaming. These visualizations reveal how different brain regions and networks work together to generate our conscious experience. Additionally, cutting edge imaging methods enable detailed mapping of the brain's communication pathways, highlighting how structural connections between regions support information processing. This level of insight bridges the physical architecture of the brain with its cognitive and emotional outputs, providing crucial context for understanding how consciousness arises and evolves. Of course, no one has even defined consciousness. By combining these imaging techniques with computational analysis, scientists can uncover subtle patterns in brain data that may offer new perspectives on the nature of awareness. The convergence of technology and radiology brings us closer to unlocking the mysteries of consciousness, paving the way for innovations in both understanding and treatment. All right, Dr. West, did you have anything to say to that statement? That was Chat GTP, and you better have been aware of pledging at the Greater Beta chapter. I'll tell you that much.
Hey, listen, they have. It's interesting because every new method of imaging brings something with it. And so it is nice to see that MR has brought so much to the imaging perspective, especially when we're talking about the constant change that we're seeing as a result of something other than X-rays, like the change that we're able to see from using MR, using ultrasound, using other forms. And what I really enjoy about things like that is that there are other forms of imaging that are on their way out, that are on their way to coming out. You know, I I think in 1972 is when the first MRI was performed. So that was the first time that that had ever been thought of as an idea that you could actually use as a clinical process for solving a medical dilemma. And so I would argue that there are a lot more of those that are in laboratories around the world right now that are going to give us things at a level that is much more, perhaps more complex, or maybe not. I'd like to say that it's going to be more complex, but the truth is, what I really think is this is going to give us an absolute different view of something that we've never thought of before. And I think that's where the real excitement comes in for me, both in radiology specifically and in medicine as a whole, is its ability to continue to find new ways to look at our bodies and find ways to understand it at a level that our eyes, frankly, can't see by themselves. I think the ability to see with eyes that you can't, to a level that your eyes can't go through, the third dimension that we're talking about. We're not seeing in 3 dimensions, but boy, it sure feels good to be able to see in 2 dimensions all the way through your body with an X-ray, as opposed to having to cut you open to do it.
You ever heard of doctors have a sense of, okay, you got this patient. I'll stay away from that. Never mind. I'm not going to touch that. I'll ask Brother Wordsmith after you leave. All right. I'll hit you on the side on that, good brother. All right. All right. We're going to go into some esoteric tin hat stuff, bro. It's not really bad. So here we go. This is the $1 billion question. It's a thought experiment.
Mm-hmm.
The richest person on earth offers you 1 billion with a B tax-free dollars. Right? You'll get the money at midnight your time into your personal account. Use it however you want. Imagine all the research you can do, all the people you can help. But when you wake up in the morning, you're going to realize you're 10 years older. Nothing else has changed. Your family isn't older. Your pets aren't older. Nothing else in this universe has changed, except Dr. Derek West is 10 physical years older with 1 billion tax-free dollars to use at your whim. Do you shake hands and take the deal?
Huh.
This is the $1 billion
I ain't gonna lie
question.
to you. I'm tempted to. I know everything that I've said about not, worshiping a dollar, but
Yeah.
$1 billion is $1 billion. And so,
Tax-free.
and the human side of me, the animal side of me says, take that money and go, brother. You can live 10 years much better than you can without it. I got it. I understand that. The problem is something in the way that we tend to think of life, which is that it's finite. That what you haven't said in that deal is your life still going to end at the same time that it's destined to end? Or in other words, if you wait the 10 years and you were supposed to die 10 years and 2 days later anyway,
You got 2 days. You got 2 days with that
got 2
bill.
days with $1 billion, and then it disappears. And because we don't know what goes on in the next life, is that
But along those lines, you may never reach those 10 years.
right?
You may never make it 10 years. So you might as well take it and set your family up forever and ever and ever.
Well, and that begs the question, is that actually going to happen? Is that $1 billion going to do what you think it's going to do? Or in other words, are you buying yourself
do you shake hands?
Are you giving yourself 2 days worth of freedom?
Do you, Dr. Derek West, shake hands and take the deal?
I guess
You're retired tomorrow. Would you say you're 50? You said you're 53?
The honest truth is, yes, I take the money.
So you'd be 63 and you'd be retired.
I've always said this about life, and that is that as much as we want to say that money doesn't control us or make us do things, everything is for sale. Everything. Whether you want to say it or not, everything is for sale. There are things that you will do if somebody throws $1 billion at you that you wouldn't do if somebody threw $3 at you.
And
But
why is that?
you throw enough money at somebody
But why is that?
because we've set a standard. This is the same problem with what is the value of money. We set a standard in our society and the way that we live that money brings happiness, money brings joy. It eliminates some of the stresses of life that you get at a very basic level. So money
Security.
should be able to buy you food. It should be able to
Correct.
buy you a house. It should be
The
able to buy you not just any kind of house, a fat crib.
the best health care.
Best healthcare. It should
Your
be able
kids
to do
aren't paying for
every
student
bit of that.
loans. Yeah.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, you ask billionaires, I have to imagine that at least on the outset, they may say that they're happy, deeply happy, and happy that they got the money. And maybe it does get rid of some of the issues that they might have that are related to not having enough money. But I do believe that there has to be some trade-off in that.
Well, they've stepped on a lot of toes to get the money. They have board members. Your
Period.
money's free and clean. Nope. You write your will and your
I just don't
legacy.
think you buy freedom from it. I think I'm going back and forth, but I just don't think you buy the safety that you think you get from it. Because if you got $1 billion, there's gonna be 1 billion people trying to come after you for that $1 billion. I just don't buy that you have
Come
the
on, you got whatever money you got right now. Nobody's coming after you for it. And those who are coming after you, those who are coming after you for it,
Nobody knows. It's not like you
Yeah.
you're signing a check in
Yeah,
front of
you don't have to
the
be P.
internet
Diddy
in front
and
of
go out there.
everybody.
It's
You just
yours.
got
I
$1
get
billion.
it.
Yeah,
You're 10 years older. You know,
there's not going to be a
nobody
national
knows that.
announcement. That's right.
Yeah, you just able to maneuver and do.
You don't have to go to the nonsense store and buy a gold suit.
Right.
It wouldn't
Right.
feel good.
You're not
I
gonna
ain't gonna lie to you. I wouldn't be out here having to hustle. I hear you. I hear you.
All that time you get back, you can start your foundation. Bro, you could do pro bono studies. You can start the Dr. West Foundation. You know what I'm saying?
This is why I play the lottery. All right. I play the lottery for these reasons. I don't put a lot of money in. I just put $1 in because
$1.
Let's say you just gotta play. You don't win if you don't play. But if you try to do more than $1, you're wasting your money.
You're wasting your money.
$1, you got it.
Right.
But I'm cognizant that money is just money.
I agree. No. When I
overnight.
was first asked that question, brother, I said no. But then I had to think, on the other hand, man, my conscience started talking to me like, what a selfish SOB. You could really help everybody, man, like live out their thing. That's just me. I'm not saying you should go that way. We don't debate. You know what I mean?
I told you I'd take the money.
Man, people are getting older. They're going to need the best health care. I got that. I got you. You know what I mean? Like, come on, bro.
Yeah. It's hard.
It is. But I know what you're saying. Metaphysically, the answer should be no. We all
The
feel
answer
it.
should be no.
You could build
But
some
the truth of
institutions
the matter
with
is,
You could, so.
welcome to where we are.
Yeah.
As much as I want to say that it's going to be easy, nothing, because the same way I said you go the 10 years and you only got 2 days after, there is nothing that says that if you don't take the money, that you're not going to still die 2 days after not taking the money. So
Right.
there's no, what we're looking for is closure and perfection on something
That's right.
completely imperfect.
That's right. And self-love, are you a yes on that?
Yeah, I'd have to take the money, and I'd have to have something set up before I sign the deal.
Before you sign it in case you die an hour later?
Yeah. And set up some institutions and build some things and you
can get a cryogenic LeBron James, Tom Brady machine in your house. Boy, you'll be getting the best treatment. With the less stress, you might even extend your life. Nobody's thinking like this.
Right.
I'm just saying, shit. You can build the whole. That's game changing if you're willing to change the game.
100%. I'd show billionaires, what they should be doing. You could rebuild communities. All right, let's move on. We're going to go to the self-love time machine. Suppose Brother Wordsmith, Dr. West, told you he had a time machine. And now, God forbid, I'm not speaking that out there, someone who you love, who you cannot imagine living 1 second without, right? Had an illness, a rare illness. None of the doctors could, find any cure for it, and imminent was death. And not only is it an illness, it's just super painful. Now, suppose Brother Wordsmith there told you his ship Leandrew sent him a fancy little acacia box, and all you got to do, Noop, is push that big crimson colored button on the box, and your loved one is completely healed. But, some random person who you have never met and who shall never meet, who has no relationship to you or your family, will be afflicted. And I know you can't do any harm, you're a doctor, will be afflicted with the exact same illness as your loved one. Do you, Dr. West, push that button, sir?
The moralist in me would say no, but the honest truth is I would probably be pushing it. I want to be a moral person. I do. I really feel like a heel for having said that. But you know, at no point in the universe does it say who it is who has to suffer. So you can pick who suffers. You want it to be somebody you don't know and you'll never see, or do you want it to be somebody who you love very closely?
Yes, you can't live without.
You can't. I wouldn't be able to live with myself on that, knowing that the person that I love, I could have improved their life significantly. And I think the problem also is that I don't actually ever see the result of me having pressed that button against someone else.
You'll never see the
never
result.
see it. And so because I don't see it, it's easy to tunnel vision it and just say, okay, it didn't happen. You know.
Well, Brother Wordsmith agrees with you. I disagree with you. I would not push the button. My wife and I have been fighting about that ever since.
You've been on the patio, sleeping on the patio.
Yeah, on the patio, out on the front porch. But it's definitely a personal decision. You said you would push the button. Okay, fair enough.
But I have to tell you, I wouldn't do it without feeling something off of that. Even if I did it, I would still feel the moral.
What if that person told you don't push the button? What if you brought it? And now I'm just adding something to it. So if we already got his answer, I'm not trying to.
So the person who I'm trying to say,
yes, say,
love,
hey, look, baby, don't push the button. Yes, baby, don't put. You gave that person a whole scenario, and that person said, you know what? Don't do it on my behalf. And I think that's what that should come down to. I should ask my wife, give my wife the scenario.
Yeah. I mean, I do it if that's what the person, I want the person to live. And if I'm okay with that's one thing, but it's another thing to ask to give somebody a living life that they really didn't ask for or want, at least not in the circumstance that they're getting it.
Correct. At the cost. What about you, Brother Wordsmith? That person you're so quick to push the button for tells you you're still pushing it.
I see a finger going.
Oh man!
I'm just being facetious.
I know. It's great. It's great for TV. It's great for TV either way. Yeah. All right, here we go. All right, we're going to ask you some yes/no questions, and we're getting down, to the end. Have you ever seen an alien, a UFO, or unidentified anomalous phenomenon?
Yes.
I have too. Ever experienced anything paranormal, miracles, or supernatural?
Yes.
Okay. Now, based upon your life's journey, Dr. West, and think about the progeny, all right? Think about your ancestors. Based upon your life's journey so far, and we're not just talking about America, what message would you leave for humanity? For instance, mine is meditate daily.
That we are all interrelated, that your well-being is as important as my well-being. And it's not just related that we're all one energy, but that our energies are interlinked into separate bodies. So just because your body is different from mine does not give me the right to waste yours so that I can live. So I would strongly argue that we have to have a stronger cohesiveness to all of us coexisting as one unit. And the sooner we can recognize that, the sooner we can start realizing the risks of not recognizing that. What happens when we don't look at ourselves? And be cognizant also, honestly, of the fact of how little we actually really know about what comes next after this.
Or what came before.
What came before. And because we really don't have that, being in the moment becomes so critical because that's all you really actually have. And so being in the moment and by looking at everything and saying it's all one makes being in the moment a little bit more meaningful, I think, and gives you a little bit more purpose and direction. So that's just my personal view on that. And it's a broken part to it because it's not complete. There's so much of it that I don't know.
Wait.
That
So
I'm
the
sort of
second
doing.
part is be in a moment. The first part was what?
So the second part is being in the moment because the first part is we're all one. That we're our bodies are separate, but we're all one energy, all of ourselves. So there's an importance of making sure that though we have separate bodies, that the bodies aren't really the focus. The focus is that we're all really one. And as long as we understand that we're all one conscious and that we're all one being,
We
and
would be
we
kind
know
to
so
each other.
little about anything else, that living in the moment becomes that much easier if you can look at it that we're all living in the same moment as one.
Whoa. All right. So I've asked multiple people this question. The oldest person said, be present, be in the moment. And she said she was over 90, bro. And she, was real contemplative about the question. And she said that most people throughout her life, she noticed people replay loops in their mind
Yeah.
of the past,
Yeah.
whether good or bad,
Mhm.
and usually bad,
Mhm.
or they're imagining an imaginary future. And she said, which may never come. Now imagine this coming from a mid-90s. Do you know what I mean? Right. So we're like, yeah, once I get this degree, boom. Once I get out of grad school, bam.
Many
Once I
times
become a
say that.
doctor, bam.
Right.
Once the
I'm
kids get,
rolling. Yeah.
once I get my first house, bam. No, I need my dream house, bam. You know what I'm saying? Like once my kids go to college, bam. Once they get out the house, bam. Once I retire, bam. And her whole point was, to your point, that there's only one moment. And I think, but I'm gonna tell you that the most prevalent answer besides that was the second most popular. The most popular answer, Noob, is be kind. And it's similar to what you're saying, because if you realize that we're all one, you're not going to hurt another person because you're hurting yourself. Evidence of this is you see someone get hit by a car and you do this and that. Why do you do this and that? You don't even know that person,
Right.
because our energies are connected.
Energies are connected. You're feeling what that person feels. Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, because the energy that comes off that affects all of your senses,
Mhm.
and therefore it affects your soul, your mind, the consciousness.
Right.
Facts. All right, self-love time machine. All right, I gave you the magic box question. That was the magic box question. Now we're going to give you the self-love time machine. I don't know what's wrong with me. Self-love time machine, good noob. All right, self-love gives you a box, and you can go back in time, right? And you're going to go back to 9-year-old Derek West. This is before the doctor, before all of the mask, before the life experiences after 9. So you're going to go back to 9-year-old D West. You know what I mean? You might have just got hit by a snowball by accurate throwing, Brother Mills, from Ray School. Yeah, I'm scared. Oh, very accurate. All right. You're 9 years old, bro. All right. Um, it's your birthday party. You're sitting there at your dinner table with your dad and everybody. You know, it's your birthday. They got the candles going, 9 candles, and they tell you, Derek, blow out the candles and make a wish. And 9-year-old you wish to meet 53-year-old you, right? What message? So now you're going to be summoned back into that time, because we all may agree that all time is happening at once. You're going to be summoned back into that moment, you as you are now, and you're going to be talking to 9-year-old Derek. What message would you give to your 9-year-old self, good brother?
Nine-year-old Derek. I would tell 9-year-old Derek to try to remain a child for as long as you can. Because once your childhood is gone, you don't get to go back to it. And that it's a special moment in your development where as an adult you make a mistake, you feel the pain of the mistake. But as a child, there is something to be said about growing, and that there is a support network that's around you that loves you in a way that is cognizant of your childhood and protecting it. And it's a very special time in life to be in, and that it is quickly changed and gone. So don't be in any hurry to move away from that. Don't be afraid to still remain a kid and smile being one. That's what I would say.
Amen. Young Derek, listen up. And it's along your lines though, bro, of being present. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
just
enjoy that. No, really, you think about that, especially as a child, you don't realize. I know for my kids, I can, especially, both of my kids now, 13 and 15, they're ready to be, at least my daughter particularly, she's 15, she's ready to be an adult right now. And, I want to tell her to slow down and enjoy being a kid while you can.
Yeah. Don't rush away from that.
Don't rush away from that, because once it's gone, you'll understand what you don't have anymore.
But it's all a cocoon, bro.
It's all a cocoon. It's all, and I like the honestness.
You can't be the butterfly trying to keep the cocoon. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying?
You can say that your childhood is going to end.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say that, eventually you're going to be an adult, but that doesn't have to be the focus of this point in your life. This point in your life is really about your personal development and who
you are so right, because it's not like you have to. There's some children who are forced to be adults, but if you don't have to,
you're still in your cocoon. So stay in your cocoon.
Enjoy it. Yeah, enjoy
Till
it.
it's time to be a butterfly. Or a moth or whatever you gonna be.
Yeah. Hey, if my dad or mom was a doctor, I would probably lived at home till I was 37. You know what I mean? Big ups. All right. Drew Wade said time and space are separate. He said Derek can make a show to target the industry. You're onto something with wellness. I concur. It's only going to intensify with the machines taking over. I concur. All right, bro. Nope, we're almost finished. We saved the easiest question for last. Remember, this is for the consciousness. The AI is going to listen, pick up on it. Dr. West, what's the meaning of life?
Wow. A big part of me wants to say I don't know, but I think there's a better answer than to say that. I think that life ultimately is about discovering meaning for yourself, and that, as much as I'd like to put together what I think life is and what meaning is, does it give me that it gives me purpose? It doesn't mean that everybody is going to have that same purpose and meaning. So I think that part of what life really is about finding purpose and meaning, and to know that it changes. That the answer that you got today is different from the answer that you're going to get tomorrow, which is going to be different from the answer that you're going to get 2 years from now. And so, what your purpose and meaning are fluid, and so they require constant regeneration. So I think that's what life really is. And so finding that meaning and purpose, it's not an end goal, it's a continual one. That's what I think life is.
It's that superposition, right? somebody asks you that question today, it collapses. You might say one thing, you know
Right,
what I
right.
mean?
Well, things change, you know, and
Yeah,
if there's
yeah.
anything you can count on, if there's anything that you can count on, is that there's going to be change. You can count on that what you got right now is not going to be here tomorrow, just simply, and for no other reason than because there's another day of life that you just went through. And that changes what your perception is of what life is in the current presence. So, you know, that is probably what I would really look at as life.
Mm.
And so, understanding that and embracing that is a difficult thing for anybody to do, to be honest, because we're always looking forward and backward and not in the moment. So, but
What was your right brain response to that? What did he initially say, Self? There is no me, or you don't know.
I
You
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Mm.
And the reason that I started with that is because I'm careful about trying to say
Define and label and
define
box
and
in.
label, because the defining and labeling in and of itself is something that's always in constant change. And so it's sort of hard to look at that and say, I know for certain what life is. And, you know, I've always perceived that at the end of your life, you figure out what life really is. And
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what that feels like. I've just always thought that, you know, that deathbed thing, that, you know, right before the deathbed, you're like, the light comes and you're like, that's what it is. I've always sort of
Interesting.
wanted to believe that that's true. The reality is, I actually don't think that's true. I think that there are as many people who sit there at their deathbed and uh, wish that they had made a lot of changes that they didn't make. And so I think that that's why I say, you know, getting your purpose and meaning in the moment that you're in and knowing that it changes and changing with it, that becomes the most important thing. Because then when you're at that bed at that moment, you can say, I did everything I could at the moment that I could do it.
Brother Wordsmith, you had something to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's all a loop,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
If you don't change your energy or figure out what you need to do or where you need to go and how you need to move,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna relive the situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, until they're resolved. And that's why people come back in theta, they know where they've been or whatever, and people don't believe them most times. But when people follow what they've been told, they find that it's real.
Yeah.
And I'd venture to, oh, my bad. Go ahead, Noob.
We live many times, or at least I have. I can't speak for anybody else. I don't know all of the information, any of that, but there's some stuff that's building and I'm growing.
And not for you guys to answer, just something to ponder. It would be like if, I don't know, maybe this answer is as simple if to your response to the question, what is the meaning of college? Right? Now, I'm not asking for a response, you know, because, you know, there's some quick answers. Get your degree, you know, blah, 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 to make money. It could be a whole lot of stuff. You know what I mean? D Wade said everyone wants to hear a doctor speak. Eat your heart out, Dr. Phil, produced by TATN. Think about all the stressed out IRs, emergency rooms. Yeah, my ship's in the emergency room ER. So, you know, but that true for every field and every sector. All right. Nope. We're going to play a 60-second game. All right. And then we get you out of here. Okay.
All right. All right.
Appreciate you. It's called the Self Love Arc. Here's the rules of the game. You're going to have 60 seconds, 60 seconds, all right? We're going to give you a pair of items, just like Noah's Ark. And each item is going to be different. And you want to select the item that resonates with you. You want to select the best item for you. You can pass 2 times. If you pass more than 2 times, it's considered a fail. Means you lost the game. We haven't had anyone to lose the game thus far. And do you have any questions?
No. I'm ready to roll.
All right, here we go. Death row, y'all. Yeah. DR, y'all watching this? All right, let me change this here. All right, make sure we got the right view set up. All right, Karen, Karen, she's always calling cops on copper colored people, bro. Hold on 1 second. We got to get the timer here. All right, here we go. All right, start the timer. Aliens exist. We are alone.
Aliens exist.
ATL, Chicago.
Chicago.
We've walked on the moon. Moon landing is cap.
Walked on the moon.
Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X?
Malcolm X.
The Chicago Bears will win 9 games this upcoming season. The Chicago Bears will win 8 games or fewer this upcoming season.
9.
Great number. Anarchy or tyranny? Anarchy or tyranny?
Pass.
All right. Kia, Hyundai stealing so-called Pookie. Oath breaking police officer, potentially KKK.
Oh, Jesus.
You've got one more pass.
I know. I think I'm done if I do one more. Is that correct?
No, you've got another
all right, then
pass.
I'm gonna take a pass on that one because I can't even remember what the first part was.
All right, I'll read it to you again. Kia stealing, carjacking, Pookie.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? Catch you after you're pulling up, hard long shift. You're going to the ATM. Pookie jumps out of a stolen Hyundai and jacks you for whatever you're pulling out of the ATM versus the oath breaking member of police department.
Gotcha. Pookie.
Fair. That's fair. All right. Big Daddy Kane or Kanye West?
Big Daddy Kane.
Are we living in a simulation, per Brother Wordsmith's theory, or are you living in base reality, per Brother Mill's theory?
I'm gonna go with Brother Mill's theory.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Bonus question, Noop. So you've already won the game.
All right.
Elder Watson Diggs, the Dreamer. Earl. Beta is Mecca. Beta is Mecca. Dickerson. One more time before you answer. Elder Watson, the Dream, Diggs. Earl. Beta. Dickerson.
I gotta go with Earl B.
This
Kappa would be Kappa, but no, if it wasn't for Earl B.
You just outperformed what you did on the MCAT without any preparation, bro.
Boom, there it is.
I mean, I think Brother Wordsmith might have given you a 90%. I'm going to give you 100%. That was the best job single-handedly I've seen on that particular self-love art note ever.
Wow.
Brother Wordsmith may disagree because he's a simulation theorist.
Everybody feels the way they feel.
It's all good. Self-love.
All right, Dr. West, anything you wanted to add, like anything we didn't cover or anything you might be promoting, any charities or anything like that? Nope.
Well, 2 things. First of all, I really want to give a special shout out to YouTube. No, this is serious stuff that you guys are doing, and this really matters quite a bit. Getting a voice out and being able to be heard is one of the most fundamental basic things that so many humans don't have that you are empowering humans to do. So please continue to do that. And so I really want to make sure I say that. The other thing is that I encourage every person to dream and not be afraid of it. because just because you don't know where your dream is going to take you doesn't mean that you can't do it. Because there is nothing that is written in stone that says just because you didn't go for the $1 million house doesn't mean that you're not going to still get one if that's what you want. So those are the things that I want to make sure I say.
Hey, thanks for the kind words, good brother. You know what I mean?
And every word of that, meant every word of it.
Keep achieving. I remember this Snoop would he would pop up on Marco Polo. Yeah, I'm in Spain. I'm in such and such. You know what I mean? It was in China, standing over everybody. You know, you in the NBA, you in the NBA. You know what I mean? Are you doing calculus? You know what I'm saying? Stop asking me these questions. But Brother Wordsmith, if you got something to say.
I thought he was gonna tell his 9-year-old self, "Hey, watch these Michael Jordan shit and learn how to hoop."
Well, you better learn.
You're gonna be a tall
It's coming.
motherfucker.
It's
Man.
coming.
Do
Can't get
something.
away.
Man, what'd you say, Self? What was my man for the Naval Academy?
David Admiral, the Admiral.
Yeah,
Admiral.
you're the next David Robinson. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Man. No.
All good stuff. All good stuff.
That's
silly.
Yeah, that's well said, good brother. But D West, man, keep going, good Noob. You know,
I shall, and you do the same. You brothers keep doing this. Keep making your moves out here for real. This is good stuff. This is real serious stuff that you're doing. Don't stop.
man, we appreciate you, good brother. And before you go, we want to say, this platform's your platform. This platform's our platform. From California
to South Shore.
From ATL to NYC, this platform was made for you and me. Welcome to the Give Back Gang, brother. We give back. We appreciate you, good Noob.
I appreciate y'all. Care, brothers.
Yeah. Yo.